The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. So thrilled to be with you here today. We are going to be with you for the next 3 hours live, talking about how we can be more effective, more efficient working with our children on the autism spectrum. Whether you're a teacher, a parent, or a practitioner, we all have the same goal, right? We want to be as effective as possible with our kids on the spectrum. But by the way, this is a wonderful little sideline. The things that we're going to be talking about are useful and helpful for our kids who aren't on the spectrum, and useful and helpful for us as well. Because the main thing that we talk about here is ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis. It's the only scientifically proven effective treatment for autism. And by the way, it's been proven to be effective in showing progress for all of our kids, wherever they are on the spectrum. So if you have a child who is on the Asperger ends of things and they're very high functioning, and you're saying, but there's some skills that we'd like to add, some things that we'd like to target, some things that we'd like to diminish, some things we'd like to grow, very effective ABA. If your child is on the end of the spectrum, that they're very profoundly affected, and you really are looking at some very challenging behaviors and a skill level that you're not comfortable with, that you'd like to see your child grow some functional communication skills, ABA, very effective, and everything in between. Isn't that a lovely thing? So all of our kids are different. They're all going to have different outcomes, but we know that progress is possible and that ABA is effective at creating progress for all of our kids on the spectrum. So we want to talk about how we can be the best possible team members on our child's team. And throughout the day, we're going to give you lots of tips and hints, talking about targeting specific behaviors, whether it be a challenging behavior that you want to diminish, or a skill and a behavior that you want to grow that's more positive. So we intend for this always to be a conversation. We want to be here to serve you and to help you. We have a lot of different things that we have planned for the day, but honestly, all of that can go away if you have questions or if you have comments, concerns, things that you want us to target. If you're sitting there today and you're saying, this is all great, but today I need to know about biting, let us know. Lots of different ways to participate in the conversation. And by the way, lots of ways to watch the show now. So let's go over some of the different ways that you can be watching the show and how you can interact. If you're watching us on autism-live.com and it says live, then you are in fact watching us live. There's a question box that says your questions. You can be typing. You don't have to log in. You don't have to do anything except type into that box, hit enter. Your question will show up here in the studio live, and you and I can be having a conversation in that way. If you're watching us on autism-live.com and you see that it doesn't say live, it says rebroadcast, it's okay. You still get to participate in the conversation through email. You can drop us an email. We will cover your question in our next available live show, but we'll also send you a typewritten response, which I know is very helpful and useful. So please participate by email. And if you're watching us on other forums, you can email us as well too. So this is a really important email address. You can also reach us by phone. We are here from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. The show is live from 9 a.m. to noon Pacific time. And so if you call in during showtime, they can patch you in here to the studio and you and I can be talking. If you're shy, that's okay. You can be talking to somebody outside the studio. And once the show is no longer live, there are still people standing by to take your phone calls. So feel free to call in. If you call and it's not during business hours or it's the weekend, you can leave a message and we will get back to you as soon as we're back here in the studio. By the way, during the live show, you can also Skype in. If you're having a good hair day and you want to be here with me, they'll put your picture right next to mine. We can be talking through the grace of technology, right? It's a wonderful thing. So participate. We've been having a lot more bloggers on the show and we hope to do that. But whoever you are, if you've got a story to tell and you want to be on the show, please give us a buzz on Skype. You can be doing that. Let's talk about some of the other different ways that you can be watching us besides autism-live.com. We're also now on Blip. You can be watching us on Blip TV. This is one of those things that, we listen to you guys. We take your suggestions, and some of you wrote in and said, loving the show, but I need to be able to rewind. I need to go back to Thursday's episode so I can show it to my significant other. I want to show it to the babysitter. Well, now you can do that on Blip TV. We're archiving all of the shows there. You can take a look. Sometimes we have the whole shows there, but then we also have features and highlights there as well too. And you can pause and rewind, go back. We're such a DVR society, right? It's a great thing. So check us out on Blip. You can even subscribe to us there. Also, we're on YouTube. If you go to the YouTube channel, you'll see highlights. The interviews that we do with experts or parents are available there on YouTube. And we appreciate your comments and suggestions there as well. Also, now we are on iTunes. You can download the whole show and be watching the video via iTunes. You can subscribe there as well. And by the way, we appreciate your reviews on iTunes that you guys have been writing in. And I think as of today, you can also download just the audio portion. If you're walking, bless you. If you're walking or exercising and you want something to listen to while you're exercising, you can now download the audio portion. So you'll see that you'll have a choice on iTunes. Do you want the video or the audio? I'm trying to think what else there is. Well, there's Facebook. You can reach us via Facebook. We love it when you guys participate in the conversation in Facebook. And we're brand new on Facebook with the Autism Live page, so we would appreciate your like there and participate in the conversation. Also, you can tweet us. We do love to talk to you during Twitter. I'm becoming much more efficient at Twitter. And this is kind of new territory for me. If it is for you too, I'm a little fascinated by it, but we appreciate being able to talk to you via Twitter. By the way, you can also be talking to me personally on Facebook. I am on Facebook under my name, Shannon Penrod, and I am also on Twitter. On Twitter, I am Gems Mama. So there you have it, because I am Gems Mama. One of the things that I like to remind you at the top of the show is that we're going to be talking about ABA and we're going to be talking about autism, and I am an expert in neither. Yes, I don't know. They've left me guard the fort, but I am an expert in neither one of those things and never want to pretend to you that I am. I am a parent. My son was diagnosed with autism when he was 2.5, and yes, I can smile about it and laugh about it. That's how good my life is. And that's part of the reason why I want to be here to share with you the good news that there is so much help and hope for our children. I got to see it firsthand. I refer to ABA as the autism miracle in my living room, and that's exactly what it was. And I want to share that with you in any way that we can, share the information so that you have access to what I had access to. When my son was diagnosed at 2.5, it's that devastating day, right? We've all been through it. And if you haven't gone through it yet, we're going to be talking a little bit later on today. Somebody had written in and said, tell us about what the warning signs are and what we need to do. So I've asked Dr. Adele Nadowski to come in with us. She's going to be here right at the 10 o'clock hour to very quickly go over what the warning signs are. So if you have not yet been diagnosed, you're going to want to tune in at 10 o'clock. But for those of us who've already gone through that process, it can be devastating, right? But at the same time, it can be a very empowering thing, because then at least you know where you need to look for help, right? And there is help. When my son was diagnosed so many years ago, because he's 8.5 now, it was one of those things where I thought, well, at least I know what it is and we're going to know what to do. And I went to the internet, and what I discovered was that I was no closer to knowing what to do. I had the benefit of relying on a group of other parents who were so helpful to me, and said, don't waste time. Here's what you need. You need really good quality ABA therapy. And that particular family that helped us said, and you need to be at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. And I listened to that and called the Center for Autism and Related Disorders before I was even out of their driveway. And the rest, as they say, is history. My child started therapy around his 3rd birthday. He was about 3 weeks old and 2 weeks. And I got my child back from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing, and we'll talk about some of the different techniques that they used doing quality ABA. I want to keep driving home to you that quality ABA is the name of the game, and it stands for Applied Behavior Analysis, and we got to get the right ABA, right? And I speak a lot about the Center for Autism and Related Disorders because I'm probably their biggest fan, because, in fact, I got my child back from them. I know there are parents out there who are like, nope, I'm the biggest fan because I got my child back there too. But I want you to know that there are many ABA providers out there, and a lot of them are doing really quality ABA therapy. It's not just about the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. But that's my experience card. So I do talk about it from time to time and wax poetic about it because it's worth it. But I want you to have, as I said, have access to what my child had. And you can now. No matter where you live, where you are, you have the ability to learn these techniques. And if you can't get anybody else, although we'll talk about how you can get somebody else to work with your child too, but at least you can be. And that's a really empowering thing. That's why I'm here. That's one of the big reasons why I get up in the morning, to share that with you and to enjoy my day with my son, who is, by the way, doing wonderfully. He is in 3rd grade, completely included 3rd grade, and excelling in all of his subjects. He is either at grade level or above, and that's a wonderful thing. And more than that, we have little to no challenging behavior. And you guys, I get to have conversations with my child. And that, I just don't know how, I know you know. That's the most amazing thing. He tells me what he's thinking. He tells me what he's feeling. We have conversations where we contemplate the universe. And I did not know if I was going to have that. But ABA and the Center for Autism and Related Disorders gave that back to me. And that's what I say I want to share with you, and have your child have access to what I had access to. That's what I'm talking about. Okay, so that's who I am. And by the way, I have been granted access on your behalf to all of these experts. So please use that. Write to me. Tell me what your question is. I will hunt it down for you. That's why we're having Dr. Adele Nadowski in, because one of you wrote in and said, I want to know more about the warning signs. So we're going to have an expert in here at 10 o'clock talking with you specifically about that. So what else do you want to know about? What else do you have questions about, concerns about? What topics do you want to have covered? Let me know. All right. We like to start every single morning with something that I fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. It's like our warm-up for the day, right? We know that this is a jargon-intensive journey, and if you don't make friends with the jargon, man, it slows you up, right? I always say it can sink your battleship, and we don't want that, do we? So we got to make friends with the jargon a little bit at a time, just like how we teach our kids. We're not going to take on a huge task and have this expectation that our child's going to get it the first time, right? We're going to break it down into small little increments and reinforce our child for getting the small little increments, right? Same thing with the jargon for us. We can't expect ourselves to become experts in all of these terms overnight. That would be unrealistic, and it makes us overwhelmed, frazzled, and sleep deprived, frankly. But we still have to get there. So a little bit at a time. We give you a phrase, a word, an anagram a day, go over what the actual definition is, and then give you a more user-friendly definition and try to put it into context. And slowly we build up a repertoire repertoire of these words and phrases. Okay, so today's phrase is expressive language. Yesterday it was receptive, and we talked a little bit about expressive, but let's take a look at what the actual definition for expressive language is. The production of language, including speech, signing, and/or gesture for communication. Okay, fairly simple to understand, but let's take it one notch down. Our working definition is the child's ability to communicate their needs. Remember what we were talking about yesterday, if you were watching, that for expressive, I always think of it as the two different directions. Express goes that way. It's what your child is expressing. Remember, it doesn't necessarily have to be vocal. If a child is signing or using an iconic communication system like PECS or using a device, that counts. That's them expressing themselves. We want our children to express themselves, right? Of course we do. And receptive, of course, is what comes this direction. So what they hear and understand. What's so fascinating to me is that I think for a lot of us as parents, we get really nervous about the first signs, that we're concerned about are when our child isn't speaking enough, right? And again, we're going to have Dr. Del Nadowski talking about what some of the red flags are, but that's one of the first things. And I think we get very emotionally attached to, we want to hear the child speaking. It's so important, right? I don't want to belittle that at all, but sometimes we don't realize that there's the whole receptive language aspect of it. So again, I want to remind you that as you go to IEPs and as experts view your child and assess them and come back to you, they're going to talk to you about two different areas, receptive and expressive. And we want both of them to be in a really healthy range. But what's going to help you to teach your child is knowing what these two numbers are and what the relationship is to each other. So if you see that your child is higher in receptive language than expressive language, you're going to approach things in a specific way. And if you see that the expressive language is higher than the receptive language, you're going to do things in a different way. And you can see this in children, when, and sometimes they're both low, but it's important to know what the numbers are and to understand them. It's going to change the way in which you teach your child. Our kids aren't all the same, right? There's no cookie cutter approach to this. We got to really tailor it to each individual child. But you'll see with a child whose receptive language is low that those are the kinds of kids that you hear parents saying, I wonder if they're deaf. I wonder if they've got a hearing problem because the child isn't responding to things that are being said to them. They act as though they don't understand. And a lot of times the child just shuts down because they don't know the information that's coming in. I imagine that if I went, I live in Los Angeles, and so if I go to a store where all the languages that are being spoken in the store are not English, I tune it out. Because I don't understand any of it. And if it's constant and happening around me, I don't respond to it. Somebody could be saying to me, hey lady, you're standing on my foot, and I wouldn't understand it. And they might think that I'm deaf, but I'm not deaf. I just have tuned it out because I don't understand any of it. And our kids can sometimes be the same way. I think sometimes when there's behavioral problems and a child is speaking, we overlook that there may be a receptive language issue. I think that the expressive, we tend to notice it quicker. Not always, but in some cases. So really good to know the difference between the two, to know when your child gets assessed, they're going to bring it up, right? To know what these two things mean and to understand them, because it really is going to change how you begin teaching language to your child. Okay, so that's our jargon for the day. We also always have a question of the day for you. I love the question of the day because it's a real opportunity for me to interact with you guys. A lot of you are answering the question of the day on a regular basis on Facebook. I just love that. And you're interacting with each other, and some of you have made friends with each other and are supporting each other. That's what we have to do, right? That's what it's all about. So the question of the day today is, what is the biggest breakthrough your child has had since being diagnosed? What's the big deal that has happened for your child? For me, this is endless. If I were going to have to list all the different things that my child has done, Oh, it's absolutely amazing. And I swear to you, it keeps changing and it changes every month. There are things that will happen and I go, oh, look at that. We've come so far from a child who wasn't speaking, who lost virtually all of his ability to communicate, to a child who is constantly communicating now, who wasn't using any gestures and is now using lots of gestures. Absolutely amazing. In the early days, though, I do remember that one of the biggest deals for me was when my son started to ask why questions. It was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. He had been in therapy for probably a year, because he started therapy when he was 3, and I know that he was 4 the first time he asked a why question. And I know I've shared about this before on the show, so I'm not going to belabor it, but I was driving the car, and I almost created an accident because it was so exciting to me. And he was talking to me about dinosaurs, and he'd been watching those Land Before Time movies, and he was sitting in the back seat in his car seat and looking out the window, and it occurred to him just in that moment, I've never seen a live dinosaur. And so he was thinking it through, and he said to me from the back seat, Mom, where did the dinosaurs go? Where are the dinosaurs? And so that was a pretty big question. Any of the WH questions, pretty big right there. And I kind of, I can remember exactly the stretch of the road that I was on. And I think about it all the time when I go through this stretch of road. I was driving him to preschool, and I got so excited, and I said, well, honey, the dinosaurs are extinct. And I think in that moment that he actually said, what's extinct? Whew, big questions, right? And I said, well, it means that they all died. And he said, why? Why did they all die? Now, at this point, I'm like looking for a place to pull over because it was so exciting. It was just boom, 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 all of these questions. And I said, well, there's like, and I know my child's a huge concept child. And, so I'm trying to drive. I'm so excited. I don't want to tip off to him that the world has just changed for us. But I'm trying to explain what that is. And I said, well, some people believe that it was this. And I'm going, just shut up and say something, I was so overwhelmed. But I said, the Ice Age came. And he hadn't seen the Ice Age movies yet. And so he didn't have a point of reference for that. And I said, but, it got really cold. The earth got really cold for a while. And that he understood. It was his little 4-year-old. And he became so agitated, and he said, even the baby dinosaur died? And I said, yes, honey, I'm so sorry. Yes, even the baby dinosaur. And he said, well, but they got cold? Yes. Well, somebody needs to get them a blanket. So, not only was he asking the WH questions in such a rapid fire way, but he was problem solving too. It was just so amazing. And that was when he was 4. Imagine, he's 8.5 now, and the things that we talk about. It's just talk politics with my 8.5-year-old. It's fascinating. So I want you to know that these things happen, and they happen at different times, but it's possible. It's possible. All these things are possible. And I want to know, what's the biggest breakthrough that your child has had? Let's have a day of celebrating the things that they've done. Write into us on Facebook, tweet us, whatever you like. You can go to the Autism Live page for Facebook. While you're there, please like us, and we need to be liked. And you can also go to the Center for Autism and Related Disorders Facebook page as well. Okay, we also always have a topic of the day for you. The topic of the day is the thing that we're going to filter everything through, and we have the same, sometimes we do one topic for an entire week, and I think that's the case this week. I can't remember, but we're doing teaching language. It's so important that we give our children the opportunity to learn language, right? I don't think there's anybody that would argue. And we know that ABA, again, is the only scientifically proven effective treatment for autism. And on top of that, we know that we can teach language skills to our children using ABA, right? Nobody can argue that. The evidence is there. So now it just becomes a thing of how. how do we do this? So everything that we talk about today, we're going to put through the filter of teaching our children language and the myriads of different ways that we can do that, because there are so many different ways. There's many different ways as there are our kids, but we can follow some basic principles and get creative and think a little outside the box, and we can get this done. We can teach our children functional communication skills, no matter where they are on the spectrum. And when we do, we open up their world and we open up our world too. Because when they have functional communication skills and can communicate what their needs are, they are less frustrated and they are much less likely to engage in challenging behavior. Huge difference in our lives if we can get this done, and we know we can. So everything we talk about today, we're kind of gonna put through that filter and talk about the nuts and bolts of how we begin to do this. Okay, so some of the things that we're gonna be talking about today throughout the day, we're gonna continue talking about healthy eating, because we know that that's a really important aspect of having our children be able to learn, right? If they're eating healthy and they are healthy, they're gonna be more productive. Doesn't that just go without saying? And yet, it's so much easier to not eat healthy, right? Isn't that what it comes down to? It's so much easier to put something that the children like in front of them. In this economy, when money is so, it's an issue no matter what you're doing, and especially if you've got a child on the spectrum. You want your child to eat, you need for it to be cost effective, and you're exhausted, so you don't want to have a fight with your kids about it, right? So it's easier to plunk down something that you know they will actually eat than to plunk down something that's nutritious. Let's just call it what it is. Let's just say what it is and forgive ourselves for the fact that that's the truth. I get that. But we can change things a little bit at a time and give our children the opportunity to eat more fresh fruits and vegetables. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. We're going to cover some motor tips. We also have some cognition tips today that we're going to cover. We're going to see the A word today. We're also going to have the filmmaker in the studio for the first time to talk to Suzanne Oshinsky about the A word and what it's been like for her on the other side of the camera. This project, the A word, it's a documentary being made at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, and we'll watch a clip from it a little bit later on. But I think it started out to be one thing, and it's blossomed into a lot of different things. I'm a big fan of it, and so we're going to have Suzanne in here for at least a few minutes to talk about what it's like from her point of view. For those of you who have kids on the spectrum, and I know I felt this way anyway, that so much was happening in my household before we were diagnosed, when we were diagnosed, after we were diagnosed, as we were going through ABA and having this miraculous return of my child. And I would think endlessly, people have no idea. People have no idea what's going on in my home, and I don't even know how to explain it to them. And it's such a roller coaster, right? Up and down. And you just think, boy, people, even my closest friends, still to this day, really have no idea what was going on in my home. As much as I would try to explain it to them, unless you were there, you really couldn't get a grasp on it. And there were a couple of people in my family. My mother would come and stay for a couple of weeks at a time, so she saw glimpses of what was going on in my house. And she would say, "This is fascinating, what's going on in your house." And I would go, "Yeah, I know, right? It's fascinating." And so I would always wonder what somebody from the outside who didn't have this experience with autism coming into our house and viewing what was happening, what their perspective would be. And so here we have this filmmaker who has gone into a house intensively to videotape what is happening. And I think it's really interesting to get her point of view of how it's changed her. So we're going to be talking with her later on. And of course, we take on the myth of the day. And the myth of the day is one that I particularly get heated about. So if you want to see me get heated, stay tuned for that. like you live for that. Yeah, let's see Shannon get mad. But I'm told that it can be amusing. In any case, we got a lot to cover today, a lot of hope. I just want you to know that there's so much that's possible. I'm here with you. I am here. And I'm listening. So tell me what you need. I've said this before. I said this last week. I know that there are obstacles to you getting ABA in your home. But would you do me a favor? Would you let me know what you think your biggest obstacle is? Because that's what I want to tackle. That's what I want to help you to overcome. Is it the funding? Is it the schedule? Is it not knowing where to start? Is it that your significant other doesn't think that this works? What is it? What's holding you back? Tell me what you think it is, right? Even if you write to me and say, I don't know why I'm not doing this, but I want to be helpful to you, and I want your child to have the benefit of this more than anything else. And I know what it's going to do for you if your child gets the benefit of it. So write to us. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about a motor tip, how we can help our kids to catch a ball. Stick with us. Hi, we're here with Sue Cho, and she holds a lot of different jobs and responsibilities at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. We're going to have her help us with learning about nonverbal imitation and how we teach it to our children. But first, Sue, what do you do at CARD?
I'm a senior clinical supervisor, so I supervise children's cases. I'm also with the training department and provide training to the supervisors, people that are becoming supervisors or current supervisors. And then I also provide workshop services for children all over the world when they don't have access to a CARD site.
Great.
Nonverbal imitation is being able to copy the actions of another person.
You can do nonverbal imitation. What can you then go on to do?
Just about everything, because when people are social beings and we learn what to do by observing other people. When we look at children learning how to play, they are copying things that are going on in their everyday lives.
So how do we go about teaching this?
So when we first teach it, you want to start off at the most concrete level, which is copying the use of an object. You can actually touch it, you can feel it, you can see it. So for example, picking up a telephone. The child has their phone, I have my phone, and I would just pick it up and say, do this, and then the child has to copy by picking up the phone and just putting it up to their ear.
And if they don't do it?
Then I would assist them. So I would first show them, do this, and then I would put it in their hand and then hold it up to their ear.
And praise them for when they do that.
And then we also want to make sure too that they're not putting the phone up to their ear when I've asked them to do something else. To start, we're just going to have the phones out, and the only thing that they can pick up is the phone. Then eventually I want to get to the point where I put other things out as well, and that they then realize that even with all these other things out, they're still able to pick up the phone when I pick up the phone. The focus of this lesson is that they observe what I do and then they copy what I did. Then we teach other items too, because we want to teach them to do multiple objects and also eventually doing multiple things with an item. So for example, let's say initially I'm teaching them to pick it up and just hold it up to their head. Maybe I also want them to understand that, oh, you dial the phone. So I might say, do this, and the child picks it up and then pretends to dial. And then eventually we start putting the actions together so they have more of a multiple sequence of activities going on so that we can teach them how to play. So for example, if I have a car, I might teach them that, okay, I'm going to start up the car. Vroom, vroom. The child imitates the sound if they have the capability of doing that. Then I'd say, okay, we're going to roll it over to the store so we both park. And then, okay, now I'm going to crash into the wall. And the child crashes into the wall so that we're able to teach multiple step sequences.
Okay. And it sounds like, again, key is getting preferred items to do this with and making it fun.
Yes, most definitely.
Not making it boring.
Yes, we want to make it interesting for the child because then they're more likely to attend and want to do it.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. And I wanted to take a second to talk about a motor skill tip. We, as parents, there are a lot of things that we want to target when we hear that our child has been diagnosed with autism. When you get an assessment, usually they're going to sit down and they're going to go over where your child is in this space and time, how far behind they are in different skill areas. It's not the funnest meeting, right? Especially in the first couple of years. And I know, I just said the first couple of years. And when you're in it, it seems like when you say years, it's just this interminable length. But I will tell you that it goes by quick, especially if you're busy. And if you're doing ABA, you're going to be busy, right? But the first couple of years, and you really got to get your head wrapped around that it's going to take several years. This is not something that you do for a weekend or even 6 months. We're really talking about at least a 2-year tour, and for most of our kids, we're talking about a longer period of time. If you watch the show at all, you know I don't like to sugarcoat it, candy coat it. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be hard, but I'm going to tell you, I'm promising you right here, it's going to be worth it. And if you put 2 years in of intensive ABA and you say, you know what, it wasn't worth it, come, tell me. You can yell at me, you can step on my foot, because I'm confident that you're not going to come and say that. You're absolutely going to see progress with your child, and you will say that it's worth it. And you know what I like to say? What's the alternative? You can sit there and do this, and you can cry, and God knows we're going to do some of that anyway, right? But we need to get into the solution instead of staying stuck on the problem, right? And we know that this works. So this is a great place to put your energy and start taking some action. It gets so much easier when you get into the doing as opposed to sitting with all the feelings, right? So yeah, years. Okay? But that's okay. You're going to get lots of support while you're on this journey. There's a lot of people walking this walk with you. And, but you're hearing in those assessments, okay, so this is where your child is. And you're going to make some choices about how you're going to direct your time. If you've got 40 hours to give to ABA a week, you're in the sweet spot. That's really hard for a lot of people to be able to fund. It's really hard for a lot of people to be able to do. You got to have a certain amount of support to be able to do that. I think we need to push for that, but if you can't do 40, can you do 30? Can you do 35? We know that from the scientific studies that you really got to be in a window between 25 and 40 hours with young kids to get the most desired responses. Now, if your child is 8 and you're just finding out about ABA right now, how much time can you devote to this? And for that child who's going to school, you might say, I've got 25 hours. I think it's really ideal to be between 25 and 40 hours, no matter what the child is. But even then, you're going to have to pick and choose the kinds of things that you're going to work on. Of course, you're going to hit things like social skills, because we know from the diagnosis that that's a deficit for all of our kids, regardless of what their diagnosis is. Whether you have PDD, NOS, Asperger's, or classic autism, they all have a deficit in social skills, right? For our kids that are classic autism and PDD, NOS, you're probably really going to want to target those language skills because you're hoping to build those receptive and expressive language skills. After that, it becomes a thing of, okay, what am I going to put my time and energy into? And I personally, at home, I use skills. My son graduated from his ABA program, but we still do ABA at home with skills, and they put things in 8 different categories. And so the categories beyond social skills and language skills, they have motor, adaptive, academic, play skills, executive functions, and cognitive skills. And I think that's a great way of looking at things, and I think I encourage you to use skills. It's what I'm using, so I love it. But, you know, parents tend to look at those different areas and they go, okay, well, you know, I really see the social, I really see the language, not as important to me the motor skills, and not as important to me the play skills. I want to say to you, think differently. If you would, for just a second, these skills are really important to be able to help the language skills and to be able to help the social skills. We know that at some point, if we, you know, what's your dream for your child? And we're all going to have different dreams because our children have different abilities and they have different trajectories. They're all going to end up in different places, right? But we all want progress. And where do we want to see that progress? And we ask you guys the question of the day, and you guys write in a lot about how much you wish your child had friends, that you wish your child could communicate with peers, that you wish your child felt like they fit in, that they didn't have to feel so removed from everybody else. You wish that they had a social standing, really is what I'm hearing you say. And I know that that's really important to me as a mom too, that I want him to go out into the world. I want him to be able to communicate with the world and for the world to be able to appreciate him for who he is, right? Well, Part of that comes especially, you think about what the currency is for kids in grade school. And it changes from year to year, but it doesn't matter. They're all going to have time to be on the playground. That is their most social time. And when they're on the playground, they are engaged in motor activities and play activities. They're using motor skills in order to play with each other, and it becomes the basis for how they communicate. It becomes the basis for their social standing. So I would ask you not to discount the motor. I know that when we take kids and we say we're going to do ABA and we're going to try to put 25 to 40 hours into their life to be able to do these very specific things, what it can mean if we're not careful is that these children are not having the same amount of time as a typical kid to be outdoors and playing, for instance, with a ball. So their ball skills are going to not progress at the rate. We don't want to have our ABA program be at the deficit of other developmental milestones, right? And sometimes when the kids are diagnosed, they're already behind in these skills. So we want to shore those up. I really recommend that you look at skills because it'll give you the lessons from beginning to end. But a really basic one is being able to catch a ball. And, there are lots of different ways that we can teach a ball, and it depends on the child and where their skill set is. But one of the different things that we want to think of, we want to break skills down into smaller increments, and there are different elements to being able to catch a ball, right? First of all, there's gaining the attention of somebody so that they're going to be able to catch the ball, being able to focus on the ball, having the hand skills to be able to catch the ball, right? So a lot of different things at play there. When we talk about ABA, we always say that in order for any behavior to be maintained, it has to be reinforcing. And what that means is that nobody does anything, not me, not you, not your child, not your child's friend, not your sisters, brothers, mother-in-laws, friend that has the neurotypical child. We all do things over and over and over again if they're personally reinforcing to us. So if we want a child to gain a skill being able to catch a ball because we want to work to the place where they can be on a team, and part of being on a team and being liked on the team is they got to have a certain amount of skill with the ball, right? Whether they're playing soccer, they still, even though they're going to be using their feet for the soccer ball, at some point somebody's going to throw them a soccer ball on the field, and we don't want the child who's turning away because it's overwhelming to them. So we got to make it reinforcing to them. And so you start with whatever material you're using. There are a wide range of balls that are available on the market, and usually for younger kids, if you think about typically developing kids, we start with a bigger ball. There's a place beyond which it's too big because they can't get their arms around it, but a smaller ball, it's going to make it harder for them to catch. There are several different kinds of balls that are on the market that are used particularly for occupational therapy to help a child who's behind in skills. There are different kinds of balls that have ribs. They look like they're going to fly. There's the ball in the middle, but they have these sewn ribs around them so that there are more places to grab. That helps a child who's behind with the finger skills. There's also something called an O ball that comes in different sizes. You can get them at most toy stores, even at Toys R Us. I know when we did our Christmas segment, we talked specifically about the O ball, but it has it's like it's hard, but it's got it looks almost like mesh, like they blew up mesh. So it's got all these holes in it. So there's more opportunity to catch things on. Even if the child, if we get their hands to be in this position and the ball comes and then they close their fingers, they're going to be more likely to get it caught on a finger. And when that happens, then we have the opportunity to reinforce and go, good job. We have to let go of the notion that the child's going to find catching the ball in and of itself reinforcing. They're not. They're just not going to. So we let go of that. If for some reason your child does find catching the ball reinforcing, woohoo, you got really lucky. But for most of our kids, they're not going to find it reinforcing. So we have to pair it with other reinforcement. And we need to catch them doing it so we can reinforce it. So these other balls give them more opportunities to get it right. So we have more possibility to reinforce. You got to think about what's actually reinforcing to the child. If they absolutely love to be picked up and thrown into the air, that could be the reinforcement. If it's that they like to be chased, it can be that you chase them. If it's that the reinforcement can be something that's also motor, so much the better. I know that sometimes it seems like it's always a toy or food. It doesn't have to be. They can find tickling really reinforcing, but it's important to know what your child actually finds reinforcing. So giving the child those opportunities, and we can work on the finger skills in a close-up way too. So let's say if you've got something that's texturally really fun that they like to touch, being able to put it into their hands and teaching them to grasp it. And even, having it be something like if you've got a stuffed animal and you're teasing a child, like making it like the stuffed animal is tickling them, you can do that with a puppet or something, and have another person, even if the child is really behind in terms of these kinds of skills, have another person helping them, prompting their hands to touch the thing that's tickling them, and be pulling the puppet or the toy back so that the child is trying to grasp. That's a great way to start to work on those kinds of skills. If the child finds it really, really reinforcing, they're going to enjoy this kind of play, and it will help them to get those grasp skills so that then you can go to the rib ball, then do it with the rib ball. They're holding on to the rib ball, right? And then you can go small distance at a time. You can even try rolling a ball first and that they grab it. We can, while we're working on all these skills, be working on eye contact. We can be working on receptive language skills while we're doing this. Remember that when we're working on receptive language skills, we want to keep the amount of words we say to a minimum. So we might just say, good catch, and that's it. Right? I know I want to say, good catch, what a wonderful job you did, I'm so proud of you, right? No. Good catch, yay, right? That's all we need to say. And then our children will start to find it more reinforcing. Catching a ball, a really important skill. It builds on a whole lot of other things that help our children to be more social, which is also going to help to build their language. So don't discount the motor skills. Stick with us. We're going to take a break and come back with a healthy eating tip, how to get our children to eat healthy snacks. Back in a moment.
Mostly the behavior started at night, but it was invading the day, where he would just speak one syllable and babble and pace around.
When she was a year old, she lost speech. She did never seem to request me for anything, even for food. He told me over the phone that I should just put her in an institution. I was devastated. I was an institution, a hospital. Yeah, isn't that nice?
He told me that it was possible or likely that Ruffin would never be employed, that he would never work productively, that he would not know that I loved him, nor would he love me, nor would he be likely to marry.
There's a 50% chance that he won't be able to talk at all, but if he does talk, he will only be able to, make simple desire requests. I want, things like that. And probably by the time he was 10, he'd be in a home.
Doreen told me that he would recover, and Doreen told me that he would go to regular kindergarten.
I really have a very normal kid now, and lots of normal worries, but not extraordinary ones.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod, and we have our healthy eating tip for the day. Yeah, it's one of those things, don't get me started, right? I'm a big Jamie Oliver fan, and I know that when we're prioritizing, I know as a parent with a child with autism, when we're prioritizing, sometimes it seems like getting the child to eat healthy is such a faraway goal that it can't be targeted this week. When you got a child who's banging their head against the wall, and you've got a child who's 10 and isn't potty trained, and somebody says to you, well, you know, eating fruits and vegetables, I know, you kind of want to go, really? Really? I got some other things going on my plate, literally and figuratively, right? Except that, let's make the case for the fact that if we're doing ABA, and we should be, right? Because we know it's the only scientifically proven effective treatment and we can make progress with all of our kids, we want to give them the best possible platform on which to learn. And if I were to ask you to run a marathon, and if I asked you to do that on the food that you're currently feeding your child, how likely do you think you would be able to do it and be healthy at the end? That's the question that I need for you to be asking yourself. And really what we're asking our children to do is run a marathon every single day. We're asking them to do things that are really hard for them. We're asking them to step up and overcome some really incredible difficulties that they have. And we know that they can. Man, they're heroic. They are absolutely the bravest, hardest working kids ever, right? And we should be so proud of them. But we have to give them the proper fuel. We have to give them the proper opportunity, and we can't trust their instincts and what they say they like to be the be-all, end-all in terms of what actually gets into their system, because they're not the best judge of that, right? Honestly, if you said to me there are no consequences, you can eat whatever you want, I probably would just sit and eat butter pecan ice cream all the time, right? But I know that that's not good for me. And we know that some of the things that our children are eating, to eat those things exclusively is not good for them. So how do we suck it up, right? As parents, we got to suck it up and figure out what is our best line of defense. And I think that it's really important to start with snacks. You don't need to make mealtime a complete and total battle every single day, right? That's not fun for anybody. And the whole idea of taking a child and going cold turkey, for a lot of us, it's just not going to be possible, right? Our lives don't support, and our children are not at a place where we could do that. It might even be harmful or cruel to do that to them. But we really want to separate what we have control over and what we don't have control over, right? And we talk about behavior all the time, how there's an antecedent to behavior and a consequence, right? Well, what if we applied that to snacking? If we just said, okay, so if you're, and I don't mean to be rude, but if you're doing nuggets and French fries for dinner and that's all you can have your child eat, and I know that there are some of you out there that really, that's it. That's all your child will eat. Then let's see if we can't add something different in terms of snacks. And what I hear from parents a lot of the time is that they'll get ready to go someplace, if they have to go someplace or they're going on a vacation, and it's a huge big deal about, I got to make sure that I got my child's food and my child's, thing is packed, because they've got issues that they will only eat this color, only do that, right? But almost always a parent will say to me, but I ended up someplace and I thought it was going to be terrible. I thought it was going to be absolutely horrible, and I had nothing. I had no choice. We were someplace and we couldn't get anything, and so my child had to eat what was there, and amazingly enough, my child ate some vegetables. And why is that? I got to tell you that I think a lot of it is what we let them have access to. So even if you just start and said, okay, for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, we're going to keep doing what we've been doing for the next little while, but we're going to conduct a little experiment, and we're only going to give access to really healthy snacks. First of all, you want to pick the most colorful, most flavorful things that you can that are healthy. I think that a lot of us try to get too creative too quick, right? I think it's a big leap to expect a child who has not been eating any raw vegetables to eat, for instance, broccoli. And everybody has those, you know, you go to any single party where they have crudités and they've got the broccoli and they've got the carrots and they have other stuff mixed in, right? And the broccoli sits there. The broccoli and the cauliflower sit there. Even the adults don't eat that, right? I'm one of the only adults who ever goes over and has the broccoli. But what goes first? The carrots go first. The carrots are colorful, they're red, they can potentially be dipped into other things, and our kids will tend to eat things like carrots, they will tend to eat things like grapes, they will tend to eat things like apples. Sometimes you can get some kids to eat things like different colored peppers, depending, but those are some, and cucumbers are another mild vegetable that has a nice crunch that you can get some kids to eat. So if we just said, all right, even if you on Sunday you go to the market and you put together a little dish in the refrigerator that's cut up vegetables, that's ready to go, so you don't have to think about it. And so when your child comes in and says, I'm hungry, I want a snack, and you take that out of the refrigerator and you set it on the counter and say, this is what I have for snack and I don't have anything else. And by the way, you know, our children tell us that they're hungry in lots of different ways, whether it's the 6-year-old who comes in and says, I'm hungry, or whether it's the 2-year-old who comes in and flings themselves on the floor, or whether it's the 8-year-old who does not have functional communication skills and throws themselves on the floor. But we can, you know, there's a certain amount of that we don't have control over, right? But we are in control of what comes out of the refrigerator and gets set in front of the child. So we do have an opportunity there to be in control of that. And yeah, the child may completely say, I'm not having it, I'm not doing it, and that's okay. Don't make it a battle. But if that's what's sitting there and that's what's available, and experiment with what you put out. And I wouldn't say anything about it. If you're seeing, you know, if there's a specific time of the day where there's normally a snack for your child, and snacks are a really important thing for kids, because they really can't go as long as we can. They're little ecosystems can't handle it that long. So putting something out in front of them and putting it there and giving them access to it, I think is a really beneficial thing to do. But again, have it be something that's on the sweeter side of the vegetables, and something that's really colorful is going to help you down the road. Put it out. Let them know that they have access to it, and then don't say a whole lot about it. And if they want to throw a tantrum or whatever, make sure that they're not going to hurt anything, including themselves, but let them throw the tantrum and don't attend to the behavior. Don't sit there and say, you just have to eat one. No discussion about it whatsoever. It's there and there's nothing else. There is something funny about our children that even if they don't have much receptive skills, they understand when we're immovable, right? They do pick up on it because our body is in a certain place, our facial expressions are, when we are 100% sure it's not happening, they get it and they argue less, right? When we know, well, you know, he didn't eat much lunch, if he doesn't eat the grapes, I might crack out the crackers, right? If we're 100% clear that that's not happening, I'm telling you, so get yourself 100% clear. These are what our snacks are. They're healthy snacks. And then at dinner time, for now, let everything be what it is. But anything that's not in mealtime, it's got to be something wonderful. I used to carry around in my purse bags of cut up vegetables because my child would get hungry. And we'd be in the car, and I could tell, even before he had the language skills, I could tell he would get a certain level of antsy, and I would know that he needed something. And so I would, you know, give him a bag of something in the back seat. When he was a baby, it would be other things, right? But I made the decision, I'm just going to do that with snacks. Other people had said to me, this is what you got to do. And it's amazing what they will eat when they're hungry, and there's nothing else. And you would be surprised. But notice, if let's say on Monday you put out a cut up apple and it sits there and it goes brown and you go, well, okay, You can take that apple and you can cook it and make applesauce to feed somebody else in the family or feed yourself, and it won't matter that it oxidated a little bit. It's not going to hurt anybody else, right? But then, okay, the apple didn't necessarily work. I wouldn't give up on it entirely, but on Tuesday, put out carrots and see what happens. If you're going to put out a dip with it, make sure that you taper it off. So put out a little bit of dip, and the next time you put it out, put a little less dip, and then a little less dip, so that by the time you're done, there's no dip and only the carrots, right? So important that we give our children a healthy basis from which to learn. And so what we put in is going to have a lot to do with what we get out. You can do it. And remember, we talked about last week, the Clean 15, the Clean 15 and the Dirty Dozen, that when we're picking our fruits and vegetables, we want to be mindful of picking either organic or something from the Clean 15 that doesn't have a lot of pesticide residue on it. Really important to keep our kids healthy. Stick with us. We're going to take a break. And when we come back, Dr. Adele Nadolski is going to be with us talking about some of the warning signs of autism. We'll be back in just a few minutes.
Welcome. I'm here today with Cecilia Knight, who is the Director of Training for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. And today we're talking about how to keep kids healthy.
I think it's really important for, of course, every child to have a pediatrician that the parent is comfortable with and that the parent is seeing regularly. Someone who's an expert on autism, who understands the issues related to autism.
A lot of kids who are on the spectrum are a little bit obsessed with one area of food. Any suggestions?
I think it's really difficult for parents because many of their children either self-limit or they don't like certain textures. Their pediatricians, after testing them, see that they are deficient in iron and other nutrients that are so important. And so it does reach the levels where many parents need to seek help. Maybe from something like SOS, Specialized Outpatient Services, or another feeding clinic in their area. Someone who can address specifically, how do I get my child to eat this texture? How do I get my child to eat something other than French fries?
So what advice do you have for parents in terms of realizing what's the autism and what's something else that has to be addressed?
As we all know, every child is different, and from one child to the next on the spectrum, their symptoms are different, and what they struggle with medically is different. You do run into a problem with many physicians saying, well, that's just symptomatic of autism, and so we're not going to treat it. And I think it's really important to be sure that if they need to see a neurologist to address seizures, that they're getting that done. If they need to see a nutritionist because of the food issues, that they're getting that done, all while being treated by a pediatrician who maybe can help oversee that. But I think it's not a great idea to dismiss everything as that's just autism.
I always try to imagine a child trying to do therapy while they've got all these biological things going on, and how could they possibly concentrate?
Right. Well, our clients are just like you and I. It's very difficult to concentrate if I have a headache or if I have an upset stomach. And so I think it's really important to first give the child the opportunity to feel better, whatever that means for that child, because again, each child is very different. But I have had children that once you address a specific food allergy, then the symptoms of stomach pain or, a sty in their eye that wouldn't go away or constant diarrhea, until we addressed that medical issue, it's very difficult to concentrate on treatment.
Sure.
And then once they could address those issues, then treatment, went more the way we were hoping it would go.
Absolutely. And there's all kinds of things that would come under that heading, right? If they had sleep disorders, we already said food allergies, but what about vision problems?
Absolutely. The hard thing is, depending on the child's ability to communicate, sometimes it's difficult to have vision tested or to have hearing tested. So working in combination with someone who could help expose the child to the contingencies that would be in place, for example, for a vision test, and practicing or being prepared may help in those situations, but it's definitely a real issue.
Wow. So maybe even using your ABA program to practice
Right.
for the vision test.
Right. It's very difficult for parents to find a pediatrician often who that they connect with, but I think I encourage them to keep looking for a pediatrician who has specific experience and has other clients maybe with autism, and they have a good rapport with other parents. Someone who can listen to their concerns about sleep or about seizures or about eating and not dismiss them. Because, sometimes we uncover things that are surprising or that were unexpected, just like with the rest of us. So it's important to keep looking for answers, I think, to all of those issues.
And the healthier they are, the happier they're going to be, and the quicker they're going to learn.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Welcome back. I know that we promised you Dr. Adele Nadowski, and she is coming, but she's a little bit delayed. So until she gets here, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the A word, and we're going to show you a clip from the A word. And in about an hour, we're going to have Suzanne Oshinsky, who is the filmmaker behind the A word, here in the studio with us. Our first time having an opportunity to interview her here on Autism Live. So what is the A word? It is a documentary, an ongoing documentary being made here at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, following a little boy named Jack Riley who was diagnosed with autism. He is in the series where we're watching right now today. He's about to be 3 years old. He's been getting ABA therapy for around 6 months actually at this point, and he's made tremendous progress in those 6 months. He's speaking in sentences, and he's doing a lot of copying language. And I know that sometimes as a parent, when our children go through that phase, it can feel a little like, but when are we going to get to the just spontaneous language? Well, it's just like in a typically developing child, just at a different period of time, that they will go through that period of time of just repeating what you say, which builds towards that moment when they start saying things all on their own. And he is starting to say things all on his own. It's what I love about this series is that it is that view into the home to see what's happening, and we get to see the arc of how ABA therapy works with a child, how you work on these very small skills, but they start to add up in a substantive way. And you're going to see in this week's clip a lot of different things about how we can work on things when we're playing, all the different things. Take a look at all the different things that he works on while playing with trains. I was saying earlier how important things like motor skills and play skills are. Look at all the different things the therapist can be working on while they're dealing with the trains, and then also take a look at some of the stuff that she's doing teaching him categories, because we'll talk about that when the clip is over. So here it is, the A word.
Jack Riley starts his day with Jessica and ABA therapy at 8 a.m. Each session he has lasts around 2 hours, with a total amount of therapy of 40 hours per week. This includes occupational therapy, speech therapy, and ABA therapy.
What do you want to play with today?
Train.
That's what I thought.
Yay, there you go.
There's trains and tracks.
Nice.
So what's an average of programs you try to get done in a session with a kid?
I try to incorporate a lot of things as much as I can. Like, for instance, if he was playing with trains, I'd incorporate functional pretend play. So that's just basically teaching him how to play with the toy appropriately, the way it's supposed to be played, building the track and having him move, and using vocalizations. Choo-choo, let's go, all aboard, things like that.
Choo-choo.
All right, say all aboard.
All aboard.
All right. As he's so little, we're building a lot of language. It's language all the time. So we work on banding, so having him request for things for me.
What train? What trains? What track?
We can also work on tacting, which is having him label, like the colors, the names of the trains.
That's the train. It's Thomas.
It's Thomas. Also, we can work on gaining attention. I would withhold the preferred trains or tracks and have him tap my shoulder to get more pieces.
He wants to go.
Hi, what do you want?
What's train?
You want trains. We can also work on compliance, like come here and give it to me. Wait. Come here. Yeah! That's such good listening. Good job, mister. So there's a lot of things I can kind of incorporate, at the same time in one sitting. And as far as his behaviors, I haven't really seen anything. Hey, sit up. Well, just now. Yeah, with his visual stereotypy, his is just looking at things from a different angle or sideways or upside down. But he rarely engages in that except just now.
What? Pickers.
Huh? Hi, Suzanne.
Hi, Susan.
Hi.
What are you doing?
What are you doing?
I'm filming you.
That's cool.
That's cool.
Can you say hi?
Hi.
Hi, everybody.
Say hi, everybody.
Hi, bye.
Who is that?
Jack.
Jack? Jack who?
Jack Riley.
Where's your nose? Where's your ears? Where's your eyes? Where's your chin? Ooh.
Where's your teeth? Is that, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Where's your head? Where's your tummy? Okay, I'm gonna need you now. Give me clothes. Good job. What's a hat?
Clothes.
Clothes! Oh my goodness, you're so smart.
Jessica and Jack Riley are continuing to work on categories.
Give me vehicle.
Vehicle.
Oh, sorry. Thanks. Give me a vehicle. Nice. What's a fire truck?
Fire truck.
What is it?
Vehicle.
It's a vehicle. Cool. Give me clothes. Good job. What's a dress?
Clothes.
Clothes. Nice. Here you go. Here's your sticker. Give me furniture. Nice job. What's a table?
Furniture.
Furniture. Perfect. Give me clothes. Good job. What's a jacket? What's a jacket? No, what's a jacket? No. Hey, hey. What's a jacket? No, what's a jacket? It's
It's tiger.
What is it?
It's clothes.
It's clothes. So what's a jacket?
Clothes.
Clothes. Good job. Here, put Tigger on. Yeah, you're all done. You want your trains or bed?
Trains.
Okay, go play with your train.
Okay, I'll go to Bob. See you later.
Oh, welcome back. I'm busy at work here looking at all the different things that you guys have been putting on Facebook. I'm so fascinated with what you guys have to say and scrolling through, taking a look, so forgive me. In any case, the wonderful A word, and I do love watching this. There were a couple of things in particular that I wanted to talk with you guys about with today's episode. Compliance. That one of the things I want you to notice whenever you're watching the A word, they did a little bit on compliance in the beginning, and you can be watching these episodes back from the beginning on their YouTube channel. So please take advantage of doing that, and you can watch ahead too. If we're moving a little too slow for you, that's okay. You can watch ahead. You can rewind all the different things on YouTube. But I want you to think about compliance, because it's one of the things that's really hard when we start out working with our children with ABA. I've shared before that I used to watch before my child started ABA, and I would see these kids sitting at the table, or you see Jack Riley sitting there very nicely, and she's going through the different things and saying, give me which one is clothes and what's a shirt. And for the most part, he's being very compliant. He's sitting there. And I know I looked at those videos when my child was little and said, yeah, but my child isn't compliant. So how does my child get compliant enough to sit there? Well, go back and watch some of the early episodes, because they started working with him on just come here and sit down. And they made sure it was reinforcing enough for him that he wanted to do it. This is a little boy who loves to be compliant now. So even they've gotten it so strengthened that at this point he can be playing with something and she says, come here, and he puts down his train, which he loves, and he comes over to her. Now that's not an accident, and that didn't happen overnight, but if you go back and watch those early episodes, and there are whole lessons and skills, by the way, to learn how to gain compliance. And we talk about it here on the show from time to time, but I want you to know that you can only get that compliance if it's reinforcing to come. That's the groundwork that you got to do. And you can see that if you really do that groundwork, now you get to a place where this little boy is happy to sit there. Now, he fuzzed out for a couple of minutes. She was sitting there, and did you notice? I love when they show us when it works, right? And you see the child learning. That's so fascinating. That's wonderful. But I love that they also showed us that sometimes they just don't do it. They're kids. And beyond the fact that they have autism, sometimes we don't do it sometimes. Somebody was having a conversation with me yesterday, somebody that I care about, and I cared about what they were saying, but I got thinking about something else and my mind went away. And finally they had to say to me, hey, are you there? You went someplace. And I went, oh, I'm so sorry. I was someplace else in my mind, right? We do that. And I love that we get to see with this moment with the therapist that she says to him, and she's done it with the other things, you see that he's getting it, and she says, okay, so what's a shirt? And she's wanting him to say, shirt is clothes, right? She already said, give me clothes, and he picked out which one, because he's working in categories. He picked out the shirt, he knew the right answer, and now she was going for him to do the expressive side of it, and she held up the shirt and said, what's a shirt? And he needed to say shirt is clothes. But he was interested in something else. He was playing with his toes. His brain was someplace else. He had something else going on in that moment. But I love that we get to see it because she doesn't let it go, right? And she starts, and she gets his attention, and she asks him again, and he doesn't do it. So then, do you notice what the first thing that she does? She tries to remove the thing that he's perseverating on, when he's just like so focused on his toes. So she kind of rearranges his legs a little so that he's not as focused on his toes, because we want to remove what the distracting thing is first, right? They don't comment about it. She doesn't sit there and say, hey, stop paying attention to your toes, but she's competing with the toes. So she tries to make it easier for herself by making the toes go away a little bit, just moving them someplace else, and grabbing his attention a little bit. He doesn't quite come back, right? So then she vocally prompts him again and says, hey, dude, and she's shaking the card a little bit. She still doesn't have his attention. Now he's not on the toes anymore, but he's looking at the other cards. So what does she do? She picks those up too and says, hey, and she's putting the card in front of his face. What's clothes? And she's curious. You can see her. She's looking. She's like, what else is going on? Where is this child? But she's not giving up, and she's not getting upset, and she's not scolding him for it. And she's going, hey, you know this, right? Very few words, but she's speaking nicely to him to get his attention back. And then he kind of comes back and he goes, oh, a shirt is clothes. And I think she even does it with him again, right? A shirt is clothes? Yeah, shirt is clothes. Great, good job. Now you can go play. This is a really good therapist. But what better than to learn from a really good therapist, right? And she sees that this child, he's tired, right? He's got something else that's going on. Now you got to finish the moment, right? You never give up in the moment. And he's got to say the shirt is clothes. But then she realizes once he does it, yay, great, let's take a break. Because we got to be working with them, not against them. And they have limits. They're children, right? So a really powerful moment that we get to see there of when it doesn't work, because there are going to be times when it doesn't work. Watch back early episodes and you'll see that when he gets frustrated, Jack Riley's taking the stimuli and he's crunching them up, or he's tossing them to the side, and she's got to be really quick and scoop them out of the way so that he can't have the opportunity to do that. Really, really good therapist. I also wanted to draw to your attention, we talked a lot yesterday about NET and DTT, and you got to see wonderful examples of both of them. NET, again, is natural natural environment training when we take real circumstances and create a teaching moment in them, right? It's organic, it's happening right now. Let's apply some of the things that we've been learning and do this in the moment. DTT is discrete trial teaching, and that's when we're setting up those circumstances where she's got the field of 3 and she's saying, give me, and he does it, yay, really important for teaching. But we also get to see how many different ways she can work on different things with the train, natural environment training. And also when the filmmaker is there with the camera and he finds the camera particularly reinforcing, well, we could get all upset about that and say, go back to what you were doing, right? Or we turn it into a teaching moment. And this is one of the reasons why I want to have Suzanne Oshinsky in here at the top of the next hour to talk about how they're not fighting it. I love the fact that they're not fighting it. She's become a part of the story too. But so here he is, and he's looking at himself in the camera. Our kids, a lot of them find that really reinforcing. And, and we can work on that so that they find other things reinforcing as well. But why not use it? Why not use it? And so here he is, and he's looking at himself in the viewfinder, and he's fascinated with himself, and he's fascinated with the camera. And so what a great opportunity to work on compliance and to work on body parts. So he's looking at himself, and they say, where's your nose? And he touches his nose. Oh, where's your hair? Oh, where's your teeth? All of these things. And he is having a ball, having an absolute ball. Don't be afraid to get out a camera and work on these things with your child. Or on some of the smartphones, there's a way to do a reverse mirror. I can't get it to work on my phone, but there's a way that you can make it so that you're seeing yourself as you're taping yourself. I haven't figured it out, but I know that you guys are smarter than I am and that you can figure that out. But that's a great way to work on, and we've seen them doing that with Jack Riley, that he was having a really hard time with say-do correspondence, that the therapist was saying something and wanting him to do it, and he was having some difficulty, especially if she was modeling the behavior. He just wasn't connecting with it. But if she put the camera there so that he could see himself, then suddenly he could do it. And, we could spend hours talking about why is that with our kids and why are they so fascinated with their own image. But, I don't know that we'd be any the closer to finding out why. And the reality is, let's just use it appropriately for these kinds of lessons so that the child finds it reinforcing enough to want to do those behaviors. A really positive thing to be able to do. And I also love that last week, and if you didn't see last week's episode, do go back and watch it, because they started the lesson gaining attention appropriately. What a great lesson to be able to do with a child, and he had no concept at all of how to gain attention appropriately, and they made a decision between the therapy team and the family because there's lots of different ways to get attention, right? And if for this particular family, they said, we would like for him to start with tapping on the shoulder. This is what we would like, to tap somebody on the shoulder and say their name. And that's an appropriate way to gain attention. And it is, and it's an appropriate way for a 3-year-old. It may not be the way you would want to do it, so you find the way that you want to do it. That we said that we wanted for my child to make eye contact and say, excuse me. That's where we started. Now, eventually, we also did tapping on the shoulder, too. And I'm sure that eventually they're going to do with Jack Riley other ways of doing it, too. But I want to bring home the point that it doesn't matter what it is, you can tailor it to how you want in your family with your particular, the culture of your family, let's say that. So in any case, though, last week we got to see the very first time that Jessica started to work on it with him, and she literally was not paying attention to him and then prompted him to tap her shoulder, and she was having to prompt him, and they showed, the second trial, the fifth trial, the sixth trial, but he's getting to the point where he now knows that this is what he has to do. He gets reinforced every single time that he does it still. Eventually, they're not going to reinforce him every time. But if he appropriately taps somebody's shoulder and says, Jessica, and she immediately goes, good, good job, and gives him something, and she says, what did you want? Very quickly, so that it's not separated, but he's seeing clearly that he's being reinforced for this thing. She's going to start to fade that over time, so he's going to tap her shoulder, and she's going to say, what did you want? And he's going to find that reinforcing enough. But it can't start that way, right? So we're seeing this sort of in the mix, that he's starting to gain her attention, tapping the shoulder. And if you think about it, we talk all the time about challenging behavior and the fact that we want to always give a replacement. And what are some of the ways that our children get our attention? We had a moment yesterday where my son gained attention completely inappropriately, right? And I was like, where did that come from? But we were able to deal with it, and I don't think it certainly didn't get reinforced, and so it's not going to be something that continues. But we always want to give that replacement behavior of showing the child what an appropriate way to gain attention is. So I absolutely love the A word. We get to see these things. It's somehow easier to see it on somebody else's child. We get to be just that much emotionally removed from it. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing. Okay, we're going to take a break. I think we might have Dr. Nadowski, but if we don't, we'll come back and do something else until we do have her. So stick with us.
My name is Crystal Shepard.
I'm Pete.
And our son Logan was diagnosed in February of 2003. Wow, it seems like a long time ago. Yeah. We were fortunate enough to find CARD when he was 20 months old. My husband called and said, you need to go to this place. I've researched it. You need to go right now. So I went and knocked on the door, and we found Doreen.
Doreen, we sat down, and I'll never forget what she said. She goes, well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to get him caught up and make sure he never falls behind again. I was like, that's it, you know.
He's a very fun, popular kid.
Rock star.
Rock star. He's a drummer. Quite an accomplished drummer. He never stops talking. He's got a funny story and a smile for everybody that he meets. And it's pretty amazing. He's a completely different kid. Recovery is possible if you take the right steps, if you're willing to put in all the hard work. And 7.5 years, yeah, it's a lot of work. It's worth every little bit, and CARD's been there with us every step of the way.
My name's Monica.
And I'm Mark.
And we have a son, Riley, and he is autistic.
Riley was almost completely non-communicative at the time that he was diagnosed. Really no language, no interest in speaking. And one of the big changes is he independently states a lot of things now.
I need to walk.
You need to walk? Make him walk. Asks for things that he wants, responds appropriately.
Hi, Daddy Dory.
Oh, so nice. We've tried other things before ABA, but the most beneficial thing has been ABA services, and I'd be the first person to tell any newly diagnosed family that you have to contact an ABA provider, and if you're lucky enough to have CARD, you're very blessed.
We are extremely grateful for the amazing job CARD has done in helping our daughter. Our daughter today, just in 4 months, I think is a totally different child than when she started with CARD. I kind of see it as, it seems like her brain in a way was asleep, and now that we've gotten so many services, we've seen her wake up.
Did you have some glasses?
And now she engages with everybody. It's wonderful. She likes to play, and she's very affectionate, and she expresses that now. Her language has gotten a lot better just in the last 4 months. It's amazing.
Since starting with CARD, Amaya's made a ton of progress, and we couldn't be more grateful that she has become potty trained. started using utensils individually. She is learning how to navigate public, is holding our hands, and just wanting to be around people more. So we're so grateful for everything that you guys have done.
Hi, Dr. Grandpa. Congratulations on your 20-year anniversary of GARD. I love all my GARD teachers. They are the best. And now I'd like to play you a Beatles song. It's called Cross the Universe.
I first saw Dr. Grandpa speak at a biomedical conference somewhere, and I was just so impressed with her. She stood up there and she talked with such confidence about recovery and what she could do for these children, and she had a whole curriculum, and I was just so impressed. But she said things like, you know, teach them, help them to develop these other skills that they have. And I thought that was so neat hearing that from her, that it would be good for them socially and help them to bridge with others. And so over the years, that's actually something my son has developed. You know, if he hadn't had speech therapy or OT over the years, he probably would be just about, you know, pretty much the same child still, not so different. But if he hadn't had CARD, I mean, he would be a completely different child. This program has unlocked the door for him to have a bright future.
Bye. Thanks for watching.
My name is Rachel Pokorski, and I have a son, Kyle Pokorski, who's 7 years old now.
Cool art by Kyle.
Around 15 months, we noticed that he had lost some speech, that he was headbanging, he had tantrums, and we were lucky. We waited and we got in with CARD, and it started working right away.
I have another exciting feature. If you put more marbles in, they alternate.
He's in a second grade class. He's at the top of his class. He reads over 100 words a minute. He's reading at 5th grade level. He loves space and astronomy, and he'll tell you, you know, why does Venus rotate backwards? Yeah, why don't the marbles go up? Why do they go down?
Because gravity.
And he's always wanting to know more.
Why are you the one that takes the microphone?
He loves to surf.
First, I didn't want to surf, but now I love to surf.
He loves to horseback ride.
I won a trophy.
You have made a difference in his life.
CARD helped me to save.
I owe everything to you. Now, who built this?
I did.
And are you a good builder?
Yes!
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod, and it is Autism Awareness Month, and in behalf of that, we have asked the wonderful and fabulous Dr. Adele Nadowski to come in and spend a few minutes with us talking specifically about some warning signs of autism. But Dr. Nadowski, you are the Director of Skills, is that correct?
That is correct, at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders.
Well, thank you so much for being here with us. Let's start, first of all, with what is autism?
Well, autism basically is identified as a child having at least 6 symptoms, and they go across 3 categories, including communication and language, social skills, and repetitive or ritualistic behaviors. Now, if a child doesn't have quite 6, they have a little bit less, they would get PDD-NOS. And if a child only has symptoms in the social area and the repetitive behaviors area, they're diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome.
Okay, and that is by the current diagnostic criteria, which we've all heard about in the news a lot, is about to change. How is that going to change in 2013?
Yeah, it's crazy. In 2013, actually in May in San Francisco, they're going to release it at the APA convention, the annual meeting there. And basically, the new diagnosis for the DSM-5 is going to combine the communication and the social areas into one category, and then that category will now be one, and then there'll be a second category for the ritualistic behaviors.
Okay. So very changes afoot. And
Exactly.
And we'll stay tuned here talking about that and having you come back in to tell us more as we learn more about that. But let's talk for a moment about when a family has a child that is failing to make progress. What are the red flags that we need to pay particularly attention to for autism?
Well, actually, at a very young age, even starting around 9 or 10 months old, believe it or not, that young, kids will start to engage in behaviors where they share things with one another. So, for example, if they see something interesting in the environment, they will point at it. If they have a toy that's interesting, they might come and hand it to you or show it to you. But they're definitely making eye contact with you, and they're trying to share an experience with you, even if they're not even engaged in any language yet at that point.
Okay.
Other red flags that are out there is that they may not respond to their name. Some families even say that at one point they thought their child was deaf because they would say their child's name over and over again, and their child would not respond.
Okay.
And oftentimes they got them screened for that and that sort of thing.
Okay, so if you're not seeing those kinds of behaviors, if the child isn't wanting to share things with you as early as 9 months, you need to be concerned about that and seek out some help for that.
Yeah, well, I mean, every child's different. So I would say if you're not seeing that by the age of 1, then you should probably be a little bit concerned. Early diagnosis is possible these days. The average age, actually, though, that children get diagnosed is around 4 years of age in the United States. But it is possible to do it, around 2 years of age, 18 months of age. So, if you see those red flags, just start paying attention to them, essentially.
Absolutely. And so if you start to suspect that it could be autism, if you're seeing some of these red flags, what kinds of things should you do at that point?
You should definitely have your child seen by a specialist. Oftentimes, families will go to their regular pediatricians. They're typically going to say the same thing usually, which is just wait it out, every child is different. And that is definitely the case. Sometimes people get a little bit overly excited at too young of an age, but if you really want to make sure, the best thing to do is to take your child to someone who is actually an expert in autism and can do diagnosis in that area. So a licensed psychologist, a neurologist. The titles might differ, but I would check the background of that person to make sure that they oftentimes see children for the diagnosis of autism, just to make sure they're a specialist in that area.
Okay. A wonderful thing. And also we should note that those are some of the red flags early on, but if a child at any point shows any kind of regression, is that a red flag as well?
Yeah, if you see that sort of thing, that's something to look into as well. However, I think that with even the new diagnosis, it's really looking to see that there's some sort of this as onset at early childhood. Sometimes people don't notice till later.
Yes.
But, if you do have an older child and they are meeting some of the major milestones and everything seems okay, but just a little iffy, some of the things you might notice is just that they don't seem quite altogether socially.
Right.
Like their social behavior just seems off. And they don't seem to really engage in reciprocal responding with people. When engaging in social interactions. They don't seek out to make social relationships, or they don't have very many. The eye contact will probably be lacking, things like that.
Okay, so any of those things we want to seek out help. Here's the big question that I want to hear from you. Is autism treatable?
Yes, autism is definitely treatable. We know that now from many, many years of research. The first study that came out was by Lovas in 1987, and in that study he basically showed that 47% of the children who received intensive ABA-based intervention, applied behavior analysis, for a few years, and intensive was for 40 hours a week. 47% of those children received or achieved normal functioning. So
it's a wonderful amount of hope for all of us to know that it's treatable, and even for the children who weren't in that 47%, they made progress.
Yeah, that's right. So any child who receives ABA-based intervention is going to make progress. But ever since that study, there's been many replications, and so we now have a backing of research basically showing over and over again that ABA is effective, and that if it's done intensively and if it's started early enough and done for a few years, that a good percentage of kids can actually reach those best optimal outcomes.
Wonderful. So for parents who are watching, if you're seeing some of these red flags, it's better to go in early because early diagnosis is going to make a big difference.
Yeah, definitely get your child looked at. And, you know, a lot of times parents, they have a way of just having this feeling about it, and
the instinct.
Oftentimes there can be correct. So
yes, so keep following up on it. If you're being told not to worry and you're still worried, follow up on it again. Right?
Yep.
Early diagnosis is key. Thank you so much. Wonderful to be hearing these things during Autism Awareness Month. I know that there are many parents who are going to benefit from this information.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. We'll be back in just a minute.
Skills is a revolutionary web-based program that incorporates comprehensive assessment, curriculum design, progress tracking, and treatment evaluation for children with autism all in one place. Developed by the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. Our approach is based on over 40 years of research on the principles of learning and their application to improving the lives of children with autism. Skills was designed to equip educators of children with autism everything they'll need to get their students on the right track towards recovery. How does Skills work? Created with speed and simplicity in mind, Skills was modeled on an easy 3-step process. Step 1. Start assessment. Step 1 begins with our intelligent assessment system, which consists of a series of questions. This assessment is essential to identifying your child's level of skills compared to their typical peers across all areas of development. This includes assessing social, motor, language, adaptive, play, cognition, executive functions, and academic skills. Every skill has an assigned age which indicates when the skill emerges during typical development. This means that each child is automatically presented only with lessons that are relevant to his or her age. Step 2. Choosing activities. It's now easier than ever to build an individualized treatment plan. In Step 2, you are presented with an individualized pool of activities that are directly linked to your student's assessment results. Each activity represents a specific skill that has been indicated by the assessment as needing to be taught. Activities are categorized by curriculum and then by lesson. There are 3 main types of skills: building blocks, fundamental, and expansion skills. Fundamental skills are necessary for successful everyday functioning. Building blocks are prerequisites to a fundamental skill. Expansion skills are non-essential skills, but may provide further enrichment in certain areas. After reviewing the activities available to you, you can quickly add your chosen activities to the treatment plan by simply checking the box and clicking the button. Step 3. Start treatment. Once you have selected and added the activities you want, you are ready to begin teaching. Skills provides you with all the tools necessary to design and manage an effective curriculum plan, such as printable activity guides that are customizable by the teacher, supplemental teaching aids including printable data sheets, teaching guides, visual aids, worksheets, and tracking forms, detailed IEP goals and benchmarks for each activity, brief and visually appealing video tutorials, a variety of treatment progress and clinical timeline charts, and lots more. And since Skills is completely web-based, everything you need is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, in one easy-to-access location. Skills users even benefit from unlimited access to a support community where they can ask questions and share ideas with a skills expert. Skills is always with you.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod, and it's time for viewer response. We give you guys the question of the day and let you fly with it. And I love that you guys are using Facebook to respond, because it's great. You can see each other's response and you guys are talking to each other. It's a wonderful thing. So our question today was, what is the biggest breakthrough your child has had since being diagnosed? And I'm going to just read through some of them here. Social, definitely social and speech. She's made leaps and bounds of progress, and I am amazed and proud. That's wonderful. Another person says speech and toilet training. Gotta love that. Another who says toilet training, swimming, and opening up and playing with his brother. That's fabulous. Another who says speech and social skills. Another who says walking at 3 and potty training at 6. You gotta love that. Somebody else who says speech, toilet, social, participating in class, and speaking up for herself. We're hearing from the parents of girls today. I love that. Another who says toilet and speech. I don't think we can underestimate how fabulous it is when toilet training happens, right? And the fact that you guys are putting it up there with speech, I just love that. We are amazed at how well she is doing with her speech. Wonderful. Another who says toilet and speech, he's making progress. That's so good. Okay, here's an interesting one. Swimming and cooking. I learned how to cook with my little boy and was very surprised he was able to follow my instructions and help me very well. Fabulous. Another who says swimming, riding a 2-wheel bike. Oh my gosh, we're still working on that. So I don't have that yet, but we'll soon. We're on our way with that. Being able to speak and complete sentences. I have him in swim lessons now, and that's doing wonders for him. How fabulous. Okay, another who says playing piano. Love it. Sometimes the successes we have to see are the ones we aren't looking for. Love that. Another who says saying the words, I have autism, without feeling shame. Oh my gosh, how fabulous is that? Another who says, my grandson has made such improvements with his toilet training and social skills as well. Let's hear it for all those amazing people and their outstanding support for our teams. Yeah, we're all on the team, right? Another person who says that both of them are being toilet trained. How our lives have changed. The independence is overwhelming. Yeah, again, I just don't think that we can overstate how incredible it is. When you get toilet training, it is life-changing. Okay, another person who says how amazing it is to hear that, and I'm touched by those 3 words, and proud of your child. Independence is overwhelming. How wonderful is that? Okay, I want to go into one of the other sites to see what else is being said. I do love it when you guys participate, because you know what? You can't always have a great day, right? Sometimes you just need to be lifted up and know that something's working for somebody else, right? Because they can't all be stellar, wonderful days, right? Okay, somebody who writes in and says, my 12-year-old princess now reads 2nd grade level. That's fabulous. Before she did not read. I love her. And of course you do. Facebook is having trouble right now, but another who says that her son's life has changed, and that it's so worth it. That's absolutely fabulous. And I don't know why it's not opening up so that I can see. All right. Well, there we have it. And so I can't see the rest of them. There are a bunch more to be able to be seen. But we love your participation. We love it when you write in and you can see that your words have the ability to help other people and change their day. Isn't that a wonderful thing? You all have something important to give, no matter where you are in your journey through autism, no matter where your child is on the spectrum, there's somebody else who could benefit from your experience and could benefit from the hope that you have to give them. So an absolutely wonderful thing. We're going to take a short break and we are going to come back, and I want to remind you that at the top of the hour we are going to have our guest Suzanne Oshinsky, who is the filmmaker behind The A Word. So stick with us. We'll be back in just a few minutes.
I'm Adele Nadowski, Director and Co-Creator of Skills. CARD eLearning is an online tool that has been developed by the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. CARD eLearning is the training that is delivered to the ABA therapists at CARD to train them on the principles of applied behavior analysis and to equip them with the knowledge they need to essentially deliver the ABA-based techniques during their therapy with the children that they work with. ABA has been proven scientifically to be the most effective intervention for children with autism. At this point, even the Surgeon General has come out with a statement suggesting just that. So we know that this is something that children with autism definitely need if they're going to improve and live the lives that we're hoping that they're going to be able to live. By being able to train people on this one particular method that we know works, and to be able to have all of your staff within your school settings on the same page, it allows you to take more of a multidisciplinary approach, and there's definite consistency going on within the team. It makes sure that every person involved with that child's treatment program, including the speech and language pathologist, the occupational therapist, the teachers, the aides, all of these individuals to be able to be trained so that they can all work together effectively with the child. Parents that are using CARD eLearning can use it either to train themselves, and then after having done that they can implement different techniques with their child in order to teach new skills. But oftentimes parents might also be working either with an ABA provider, with a school, or they may have even hired their own therapist to deliver the intervention techniques. So CARD eLearning can be used either to collaborate with your school. It can also be used to train the therapists that are coming to the home of the parents, or it can also be shared with the ABA provider so that that provider can find out about it and perhaps implement it within their organization and train their staff. You can also do reporting for your organization. So you can actually look and find out which teachers are progressing, what their quiz scores are, and actually we can give you reports as well that will help you to compare the different teachers and their performances. CARD eLearning is really, really simple to use. You can log on to this as long as you have a computer, that's all you need, and an internet connection. And you can work on it any time of the day, anywhere that you're at. When you log on, you realize that right away. First of all, on the top of the page, there's a navigational tutorial. It's a how to use this page button. Simply by watching that video, it'll all kind of unfold in front of you, and it becomes extremely self-explanatory. CARD eLearning has 9 modules, and you can basically go through those at your own pace. You're going to be watching videos that are kind of like a storyboard with narration, but in addition to that, there's many different video clips of therapists actually implementing the techniques that are being described within the storyboard that you can also watch. And then of course you're able to pause, you're able to type notes right directly underneath the video that you're watching. You can save your notes, you can review them, and between each module you do take a quiz. And once you pass that quiz, you can go on to the next module. And then after you complete all of them, you have a final exam. And by completing the final exam and passing with a score of 85% or better, you will be given a certificate of completion. Let me show you how easy it is to use CARD eLearning.
Welcome back to Skills Live. Excuse me, Autism Live. I knew I was going to do that eventually. We changed our name. Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're here at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. And I have a little cognition tip for you. We were talking earlier yesterday about how important it is for our children to be able to do perspective taking. And there are a lot of people out there who recognize this. There was a study done by Simon Baron-Cohen a while back called the Sally Ann test, right? And the Sally Ann test, what they did was they took 3 groups of kids. They took a typically developing group of kids. They took a group of children who were on the autism spectrum and a group of children who were born with Down syndrome. And they did this test to see if they could understand another person's point of view. And what they found, and I won't go into the whole test right now because I want to get to the tip, but what they discovered, which was really interesting to the entire community, was that at the age of 5, that typically developing children can stop and consider another person's point of view, and that they do. They just automatically start doing that. And that children with Down syndrome at the age of 5 can begin to determine other people's perspective, their point of view, in order to problem solve. But that overwhelmingly, children on the autism spectrum do not. So we know that this is at least a part of the puzzle piece, the missing piece, right? To be able to have our children lead happy, productive lives. And what we see sometimes, how this it shows itself up in our everyday lives, is that something will happen and someone will be upset, understandably so. You and I can understand why they're upset, and the child who is on the autism spectrum is standing there and they're happy. And we find ourselves in that frustrated saying to that child, you know, don't you understand your brother or your sister is really upset right now because of the thing that you did? Do you not see that? And the child is standing there saying, but I'm okay. I'm happy. And they really are emotionally disconnected to the fact that this thing happened and somebody else is upset, because they have a difficulty taking that person's perspective. It will mean that sometimes they will say something that hurts somebody else's feelings because they don't realize, they're not thinking about it from that person's perspective. So how can we change that? And can we change it, I think is the question that a lot of people ask, and there is an assumption that you can't change it, but I got to tell you, you can. If we take the principles of ABA and apply them to these kinds of cognitive issues, we see and have seen in studies that you can make a difference. You can absolutely make a difference, and there's even a study that I'll have to see if we can have Dr. Tarbox talk to us about, where you can see a difference having done this kind of therapy literally on a brain scan, that it kind of wakes up a portion of the child's brain and kicks it into gear. That's pretty exciting. And so we can work on perspective taking with children. And if you're curious about how you do that, I want to again refer you to the skills program, because there are a whole series of lessons, and I'm just going to talk about one aspect and area of it today, sensory perspective taking. But imagine, if you will, that first a child is introduced to what the senses are. And they're introduced to it both, talking about it, but in an experiential way. You know, what are the senses? What can you touch? What can you see? What can you hear? What can you feel? All of these different things. And then a child is taught to be able to understand how they think and know things based on those 5 senses, right? So if they're hearing a bell ringing someplace else, and they know that that bell means that the ice cream truck is in the neighborhood, and so whoever is working with the child says, where is the ice cream truck? And the child says, it's outside. How do you know? How do you know? And the child says, because I can hear the bell. And we can work on the child noticing those kinds of things and identifying which one of their senses is linked to it. And the child begins to have a better understanding of, okay, if I hear something, I'm, thinking it through, what does that mean? And I can hear it, so that means that the ice cream truck is out there. It adds, it's a way of looking at thinking as behavior. It's really, really fascinating. And so that's one way of beginning, but then at some point, we need to start to take other people's perspectives, and we do that with the senses. And so we contrive circumstances, and the lessons are all there in skills, and they give you step-by-step and teaching tips and points, and it's wonderful. But imagine that you set up a circumstance where the child can see something, and whoever is working with the child, the therapist or one parent is there with the child, they can see something, but you contrive a circumstance where there's somebody else, where whether it's another child or the other parent is in the other room, and say, what do you see? And the child looks and says, well, I see the pink teddy bear. Great. That's absolutely fabulous. How do you know where the pink teddy bear is? I can see it. Wonderful. Can mom see the pink teddy bear? And in the beginning, the child is more than likely going to get it wrong because they haven't stopped to consider mom's point of view. So the child might say, yes, the mom can see the pink teddy bear. At which point then, the therapist says, really? Where is mom? Mom is in the other room. All right, let's go stand where mom is standing. Okay, so we're standing right there. Okay, can we see the teddy bear right now? No. And then you go back to where the teddy bear is. Can you see the teddy bear now? Yes. How do you know the teddy bear is on the table? Because I can see it. Okay, can mom see the teddy bear? And now the child's having to think, okay, I was just standing there where mom was standing. And, there's still the possibility that they're going to get it wrong, but they begin to start to think about, okay, I'm here, I can see it. Can she see it? And then you might have to go back 5 times and stand where mom is. So that they're literally standing in mom's shoes, right? And seeing that they cannot see the teddy bear. Now, we're always working towards generalization. So there's no possibility that you can teach this lesson in all the myriads of ways that you would need to teach it for a child to be able to learn directly how to take perspective, someone else's perspective. But if we give enough opportunities and do it with enough circumstances, with enough of the senses, what we see is the child starts to generalize it. And that it's an amazing thing when you see this light bulb start to click on with a child, because they do start to think about things from other people's perspectives. It's absolutely amazing, such a fun thing, and you get to the point where, and again, this is something you work on and work on and work on, and you set up different circumstances, and it isn't always visual. Sometimes it can be, what do you hear? How do you know where it is? You can, you can hear the truck. How, can you touch this? All of the different senses, and working on it with that third person being able to see it, not being able to see it, so that the child is getting it from all these different directions and starting to have a global understanding of perspective taking. And I remember the moment when I realized, oh my gosh, my child really has this. And we had worked on this for a really long time on a myriad of different circumstances. But it was his birthday party, and we were going over, as we do every year, sort of the social rules of how do you behave at a birthday party, what kinds of things do you say, and when you open your gifts, and what do you say to everybody. And we went through what happens when somebody gives you a gift that you already have. Do you say, oh, I already have this, and, throw it to the side? Or do you say, thank you very much, while in your head you're thinking, mom will be able to exchange this, right? And that you don't say that, thinking that through and kind of talking in the car as we were going over to the birthday party. And I said to him, okay, what happens if somebody gives you a gift that you really don't like? And he said, I'm going to say, thank you very much, I really like it. And I was kind of, taken aback by that response, because it wasn't the response that had been there a year before. And I said, well, why are you going to do that? And he goes, well, Mom, because they took the time to go pick it out. They must have thought that I was going to like it. I don't want to hurt their feelings. That would be rude. Wah! And the angels sing. And you get there by teaching it in this way. You can't have the expectation that they're just going to pick it up. They're not going to just pick it up. But we can teach it. Amen. So it's a wonderful thing. Again, all of these lessons that we talk about are in the skills program. I hope that you'll take a second and check it out. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we are going to welcome to the studio filmmaker Suzanne Oshinsky. She's going to talk to us a little bit about the A word and what it's like being on the other side of the camera. Stick with us.
My name is Monique Erickson. I'm a senior supervisor here at CARD in the training department.
What kinds of things should we take into consideration when working with preschool children?
Well, when you're working with preschool age children, a lot of things you want to consider is one, that they are little, so you are working with children who maybe their attention isn't as long as you might expect. You've got to work on that. They're young. They may be napping still, or probably in the process of fading that nap out, but that nap may be still there, and so that's definitely going to be a variable in their day when you are trying to plan when is the best time to do some of these lessons. So they probably have more time on their hands because they're not in school all day, but that doesn't mean, that nap might still be there, which would affect their scheduling of the day. What are their reinforcers, things like that you have to kind of consider for those children who are that age.
What kinds of reinforcement should we give?
That always is going to vary per child, so you have to kind of see what your child's into, but just the typical beginning play type toys. So if they're really starting out, they might be still doing some of those cause and effect puzzles type things and moving in then to more kind of constructive play. So some of those Legos of blocks and things like that, if that's what your child likes. Bubbles, some of the kids like music and things like that. You really just have to do an assessment of what does your child find interesting and fun and incorporate those things.
Are there any secrets to keeping preschool children motivated?
Well, you have to do what I was just talking about, really find those things that they find fun and reinforcing, and that's going to be your key to finding motivation. So you have to find what do they want, and to start off at preschool, you may still be, especially if the child hasn't had anything prior to this, still working at those real tangible, maybe edible reinforcers to start off with, pairing those with other fun things, and then eventually getting rid of the foods and so forth. So you might have to what we call, establish some of those reinforcers like tickles and bubbles and fun activities. They may have to start off with pairing those with some fun, the fun things with a Cheerio or something like that to start off if that's what that child wants. But you have to have that motivation in place to get the learning going.
Is there a specific amount of time that they can work?
Well, I think that's really important to stop and think about that. They're little, they can't be expected to, sit and attend for a 3-hour session right out the gate. They're little, they're going to need breaks, they're going to need frequent breaks during that session, and, their attention isn't just going to, you could schedule a 3-hour session, but that doesn't mean that's going to be the best use of their time, that they're going to really be able to maintain that time. So I really think you have to, look at maybe doing 2-hour intervals or something like that, and just really decreasing or working up to, how far they can handle and stop there. So I wouldn't do more than probably 2 hours to start in one sitting.
How often should we give breaks to preschool children?
Well, when you're giving breaks to kids throughout your session, every child's different, so it's going to completely vary on your child. What is his ability to stay focused and attend to, to the task. Hopefully you're building up as this goes, as they have more and more opportunities to practice that. You're going to find that over the course of time, the children are better able to attend and sit for some of these tasks. Early on, it's going to be difficult. So it's going to vary per child. In general, you might do an activity or two and then have them have a small break or so. It really just depends on the child. You might, do several lessons with small breaks in between, then go for a bigger break outside and get some fresh air, move them around, get some gross motor in there. It just completely depends on the child and what are their targets. When can you allow natural breaks into the session that might lead themselves into the next thing that you want to work on. But it's just important to really read their body language. How are they doing? There's no point in continuing with lesson after lesson when they're fading. They need a snack, they need a break, they need to move around. They're children. They need to be able to move and have some fun. The session should be fun, so they should be enjoying themselves.
How long should the breaks be?
The length of the breaks is just going to vary depending on your child and their ability to stay focused and how much of a break do they need. They're not extended. When I say a small break, I'm thinking, we finished a tabletop activity, they go to the floor and they have some downtime kind of. But when I say downtime, that doesn't mean I'm allowing them to fully engage in stereotypy or self-stimulatory behavior. Which might be something like lining up the cars or the blocks or something. It means that they're engaging in some kind of appropriate activity when they're on their own time. They're still being expected to utilize those skills that they're working on, but it's a break from a formal learning activity. So those are the small breaks I'm thinking of. Like when we do a couple learning tasks, they have a little bit of time to themselves, and then that allows me as the teacher to set up and get myself organized and get my next lesson plan ready. And then, after several of those, you might want to find somewhere in between, however long you plan on going, a bigger break, so that maybe they're little, they need snacks, they need to eat. Maybe it's time to go out and have a snack, and maybe that's just a pure break on its own, or maybe that's where you incorporate some adaptive targets you have, like learning how to pick up using your pincer if that's a target. You can incorporate that into your snacks if possible, but you want to just make sure that they are getting frequent breaks and they're eating when they need to, so that they can be fresh and as alert as possible.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders from their headquarters in Tarzana, California. And my special guest right now for the first time on our show live is Suzanne Oshinsky. She is the filmmaker behind the A Word. It's really wonderful to have you here because
thank you.
We show a clip from the A Word every day. I don't know that you know this, but we take one clip and show it every day for a week so that I can talk about it, because it takes me a whole week to talk about one episode.
I'm glad that's happening, because there's a lot of information I can't put in there, so it's good that it has an avenue for discussion.
Yeah, and there's so much there to talk about on a weekly basis. So we show one episode, and we show it every day for a week, and I talk about it, and I love it. And I think, our viewers know that because I talk about it all the time, that I absolutely love what you're doing on so many different levels. So first of all, I have to thank you.
No, I'm glad. I have to thank you that I've got such great support.
Well, and you do. I'm like one of the biggest fans of this, and I think it's incredible, and I think it has so many different applications why it's incredible. But if somebody's just tuning in right now for the first time, let's talk a little bit about what it is, where they can watch it, and then I'll talk about why you should watch it, because you should be watching it.
All right.
So tell us, the A Word.
The A Word. So the A Word is a weekly vlog that I've been doing since last year. I met them, I think this time of year, about March. And every week I go and film either a therapy session with one of their senior therapists, Jessica, who's absolutely amazing, with Jack Riley. And then also when they have clinics, I tend to go film that. And so you can kind of see what the whole process is in working with an ABA specialist like Card. So you see all of it, because I know I've never seen what this thing is. You see ABA and you're like, what is that? Is that ABBA? No. But so, I mean, it's super mysterious and you don't know what it is, and people who are not part of the autism community have heard the word ABA, and for me, before I started working here, I just thought that was little robot makers, and not understanding what its whole goal and purpose was, and kind of what I wanted to show just was in the A Word, not just what ABA does and how it works and its effect on the family and the people who are working with the family, and the fact that they have on all each other, because it's not just what I've seen, and for me, even just as the filmmaker, it's not just a job you go in and then you're out. There's like a lot of very personal relationships that you build, because you become kind of a part of the family. I don't know if it's kosher to say that, but it's these therapists are there and they're making huge changes in these families' lives, and it's just amazing, the closeness that happens because of this process, and that it's able to happen.
I'm welling up already. I'm so emotional about it because it is an amazing thing. And when we were going through it in our house, I just kept saying, this is an amazing story. Even if I could just pull back from a second and look at it and say, this is an amazing, I refer to ABA as the autism miracle in my living room. Because it was. And it was it was so hard on so many different levels, right? And to open up your home and open up your heart, to let those strangers come in, and they do become a part of the family. I mean, I think in different levels, different therapists, but they become such a part of your life.
Because they're there for all the milestones, all these things that no one, if they're not in it, they don't get that what a huge thing it is to get your child to say, I love you, Mom, or just simple saying, I want. Like, and everyone's cheering. Like, they really just get as excited as the parents do because, you know.
So for you to be able to go in and tell that story, it's such a monumental thing for me. And and I'm not the family, so I can't even imagine what it is for them. But I think for the rest of us, on behalf of the rest of us, it really is a monumental thing that you are putting faces to what happens.
Right.
And while it's one family, one incredible family, we all are relating.
Right.
And you've given us a voice in a way that we didn't have before, because I don't have the time and energy to explain it to everybody while I'm going through it.
Right.
I just don't. So that's amazing.
And I have to say, I'm lucky that I got to work with Cheryl and Mike. They are such giving, amazing, personable people. I mean, I feel really lucky that they've been so open and so giving with their time and just trusting me with, having these candid conversations.
Yeah.
Or maybe they forgot that I'm there at this point. They're so used to me. But I feel like they've just been really amazing at not censoring themselves too much and being really open to share their feelings and thoughts through this whole process.
Yeah.
And especially, Mike, where you don't hear men, period, talking too much about their feelings and how things have affected them. And they're just an amazing couple to share all those to me, the emotions, the feelings, what they are experiencing to me is the core of the A word, at least for me. The ABA is really informative, it's great, but I think it's just seeing how it changes their lives completely is, to me, the biggest thing that just shows.
And I think that that's part of what I'm loving about it, is that you are documenting the ABA, but showing everything, including the emotion. And I just want to backtrack for just a second. For those of you who haven't watched it, and you should go watch it right now. But the cast of characters, and they're real people. It's not like it has been cast, but the people we're talking about, Mike and Cheryl, are the parents.
Right, Mike and Cheryl are parents.
Jack Riley is the little boy who was diagnosed, and at the point that we're watching, he hasn't turned 3 yet. But you are well past that in the episodes that are available on YouTube.
Not quite. We're almost there.
Oh,
I'm a little slow.
All
yeah,
right.
but he's 2 right now. He in real life he's turned 3, but he's 2, and then there's several therapists that he has. There's only one of them I'm following right now, just so you can see the relationship that's built between the child and the therapist, and just I don't know. I think it's really beautiful seeing how much effect that you see, because there's moments too when she's doing therapy and I'll ask her a question and she'll tell me, her thoughts about this and her frustrations with people who don't understand it, and I think it's amazing just being able to have that perspective in the moment.
Yeah, and it's so we're showing you. We just showed you that you can watch it on the A Word. You can watch it here with us. We always show it right at the top of the 10 o'clock hour Pacific time, because then I like to talk about it afterwards and go through what the different things are that you get to see. Really quite amazing.
Oh, yeah, I didn't mention where you can find it. It's on YouTube. The A Word Autism.
Right, and Emily has been showing that on the screen throughout, and we're going to talk more about that. I want to take a little bit of a break, and when we come back, I want for Suzanne to really talk about her expectations going in and how different it is than what she thought it was going to be, and how seeing a child learn in this way, what it's done for you personally, how it's changed your life. So stick with us. We're going to be back in just a minute.
Here I stand, a man, someone who has overcome struggles, someone who has endured perceptions of what others thought of him, thinking he was stupid because he was autistic, or simply believing him to be nothing because he was different to them in their minds. But I stood my ground. I just wanted to say to the organization in general, alongside helping me to improve communicatively and socially, the other greatest gifts you gave me were the value of discipline and a good work ethic. To quote Anthony Kiedis, "To celebrate you is greater now that I can." You helped me to realize that the harder you work, the likelier you are to achieve success. Having had to work very, very hard to recover from autism, this discipline has continued to serve me well. I also realized that you taught me a lot about and instilled within me a quality of having compassion and sympathy for other people. That you will be concerned more with the needs and wishes of others than with your own is something that I awe of and I constantly strive to be. And in closing, the only way I can sum up Card, all of you, is love. Everything you do to help families in need, you do out of the sheer love of wanting to make a positive difference in people's lives. And as I stand here before you as a mature adult, I have to say that I'm extremely grateful for your unwavering loving commitments to helping others in need recover from potential life roadblocks and become active and contributing members of society. While I can't overcome obstacles without a will, I cannot have a will without the love of those supporting me. And without love, I am nothing. Thanks again so very much for your love, everything that you've done and continue to do. Please give my best wishes to your families, everybody else with Card who isn't here, and especially all of your clients and their kids. I'm confident that they too will be able to overcome, and I know that they'll be successful with what they do as long as they continue to put their minds, hearts, passions, and best efforts into it. Enough said.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We're here with our special guest right now, Suzanne Oshinsky, the filmmaker behind The A Word. This is a wonderful ongoing documentary that we show every day here on the show and that I'm absolutely so enamored of. But you can be watching it on your own time. You can go back and watch the beginning episodes. You can watch forward on the for The A Word on the YouTube channel that you're seeing before you. And I really encourage you to get everyone that you know to watch it so that they have a greater understanding of what you're going through. I was just saying to Suzanne during the break about how I don't know the words to convey. I know you guys know, but I don't know the words to convey to people who don't have this going on in their home how important it is, what our kids are doing, how hard they're working, and that somebody gain an understanding of it. Because autism is one of those things that you were saying, you look at a child, you don't see it.
Right.
And so when a child progresses, we have people in the media who are saying ridiculous things like, oh, children just outgrow autism. Not that they worked their tuchuses off, right?
Right.
And we get to see that Jack Riley and his family are working a full-time job and plus for him to make the progress that he's making.
Yeah, all three of them have full-time jobs.
Yeah, that are just autism. It's just the A word.
Right.
They're just working on ABA. So it's an amazing thing. It's a huge gift that you're giving our community by documenting this.
Thank you.
But I'm really curious about knowing that you weren't a complete stranger to autism before you got assigned to this project. You knew a little bit about it, right?
I did, and that's kind of what the inspiration for doing the A Word. I was helping Card do skills, doing all the instructional videos so parents could see what all these lessons look like. And as I was doing it, I'm like, okay, this is great, but this is just a snapshot that doesn't really contextualize it.
Right.
What do these things build into? What does it mean? And
the arc.
Yeah, right.
The arc of how you teach these skills, which is fascinating.
I think so too, and then also like the people who are involved, because like as you said, autism is one of those diagnoses where you can't just see it on a child's face and know, like you can if they were missing an appendage or if they had Down syndrome or something. You can't see that there's something different going on with them.
Right.
And I thought it was really important to show what it was to have a family go through this.
Yeah.
And especially just talk about the process of even accepting the diagnosis, because the child seems fine. Physically, you don't see anything going on, and then as they develop, you notice something's just kind of off, and just trying to determine if it's parents being paranoid,
right,
or if it's really something, and that's a hard line to navigate to figure out what is real, and what is not. So I thought it was important.
Often parents aren't on the same page. That's somebody comes to it a little beforehand, and. So I think the idea behind it, really incredible, and I really appreciate that you not only follow the child in their process, but you're following the parents emotionally. But you had to have had an expectation of what it was going to be like for you as a filmmaker going into this process.
A little bit. I mean, all I knew is that this needed to be shown. And what that meant, I had no idea, because when I was coming into film, I had no idea what to expect, if they were going to be really reserved and only want just a therapy shot and not have any, explanation what was going on in their hearts and what was going on in their minds. But, as I went and filmed, it just kind of revealed itself. Like, I had a kernel idea. Going to show what this family is going through, what it means to have ABA, how people who are not even in the community can relate to having to work through an issue, whatever it is.
Right.
But and do it as a fly on the wall. And of course, that's not the case at this point. But,
right. But that was your intention, to be that removed,
yeah, a little bit.
third eye, not be a part of the story.
Right, not influence, what's going on. But how can that happen? I'm in their home.
Yeah.
Once a week, and one of the things with autism is they have social issues, so it'd be weirder if he was able to continue ignoring me.
Right.
That would be an issue in itself.
It would be beneficial for him to be able to do that. And I appreciate as a parent that I know that there was a filmmaker decision that you had to make there, but I feel like you made the best decision for the child, and in doing that, it's the best decision for the ongoing series.
Right. He acknowledges that I'm there, this is happening, but as long as it doesn't become a thing where...
Right. Well, in today's episode that we showed, he loves the camera. He loves you. You're very reinforcing to him. And there was a moment in which he was really involved in the camera, and you and Jessica turned it into a moment of working on body parts where he was looking at himself in the viewfinder, and you guys were saying, touch your head, and he was touching his head, and then touch your nose, and identifying all the body parts. And he was a happy little boy. He was being able to see himself, and he was thrilled, and he was learning and maintaining a behavior that he's been doing for a while. And I thought, what a wonderful thing that it wasn't disregard the camera.
Right.
Go back to doing what you were doing. You chose the opportunity to teach in that moment.
Well, I think it's important. If I'm going to be there and continue this, he needs to know that it's okay to acknowledge me, because I am there. But he is working with Jessica and trying to make those moments that do happen where it's redirected. Yeah. Where it's still a learning opportunity, and it's not just a place to,
exactly,
ignore what he's supposed to do, the task at hand.
Right. But the sort of thing that happens organically through all that is that you now are a part of the film. You're a part of the family, and you're a part of the film.
An willing participant, I swear.
Yes. Well, you know what, though? I appreciate it, because if you were making the film and going in there and trying to stay dispassionate about it, we wouldn't be seeing the things that we're seeing.
Well, it'd be impossible. I mean, their family, Mike and Cheryl, are just wonderful people, and then Jack Riley is the cutest 2-year-old I've ever met. No offense to other friends. But, he's adorable and just really sweet, and it's just been really, I think, really rewarding for me to just see him develop and how he's become more and more engaged with everything.
Yeah.
Whether it be, learning letters, words, labels, or interactions. It's amazing to be able to be privileged enough to watch someone else's family kind of blossom like that.
Absolutely. I had said a couple of weeks ago that he looks different now on the film.
He has a different gaze, I swear. The look in his eyes is totally different. When I'm editing things and I'm going back between time, you can just see it in his eyes. I was talking to my friend Renee, who's a school teacher, and she has some experience with kids with autism. And she was talking about how a lot of kids she sees has this beautiful, lofty gaze where they're just kind of, out in space looking somewhere else. And then, when they're paying attention, it just locks back in. You can see it. I think it's kind of strange and beautiful, but you can see that in their eyes.
Yeah, parents talk about the light being on and the light being off, that it is like this amazing, what it makes me think about, years and years ago, we had a friend's family member who was in the hospital, and he was somebody who, very elderly gentleman who had Alzheimer's, and his name was Cecil. And I was visiting somebody else in the hospital, and they said, would you just check in on Cecil and see how Cecil, great elderly gentleman who had been a train conductor for 40 years and ran everything off of his watch. Boy, he was all about time. And here was this man who was lost somewhere in the hallways of his mind. But if you would go in and you could talk to him, and I would check in on him every day, say, Cecil, how you doing? No response whatsoever, and the light was completely out. But if you would say to him, hey, Cecil, what time is it? For whatever reason, that got through the Alzheimer's, and he would look at you, he would, the whole show would happen, he would look at his watch, and he would tell you precisely to the second what time it was. And he would be so glad to see you, and you would have this moment with him, and then he would retreat back, and the moment was over.
But it's amazing how, certain things can trigger or help, grab someone's attention, bring them out from within yourself.
Absolutely. But I think about that all the time because, for my child, he regressed into autism. So the light had been there, the light went away, and then the light came back. Now sometimes he'll fuzz out and be someplace else for a second.
But I think that's normal, yeah.
We all do. But, you know, to be able to see the light go back on and stay back on is huge. And now to see it in somebody else's child and see Jack Riley, the light's back on.
Definitely. And that, to me, is the most amazing thing, his eye contact.
Yeah.
And just, like, those blue eyes just staring straight in you. I don't know. It's hard not to not be involved at this point whenever he comes over to play. I can't help but reinforce that.
How has your mind changed about autism, though? Because now you clearly see that it's treatable. We just had Dr. Nadel Nadowski in and talking about the fact that autism is treatable, because some people still don't know that, as hard as that is for me to be able to believe. But you can see that it is, and you can see that his skills are growing. Has it changed your mind about autism at all?
It definitely has, especially since I've seen quite a wide variety of children that have autism. Granted, I have never spent this much time with one family, but I definitely see how ABA can work, because it's taking an idea or a thing that needs to be taught and making it very simple to its core, and then you build onto that. And I think people who are not experienced with ABA in their own family, they see just the beginning part where it seems very rote, but it's how you learn math, or how you learn. There's certain things that we've learned growing up where it is this compartmentalized thing repeated over and over again. And for kids who are on the spectrum, it's a little harder for them to learn, so it has to be like that. But then you see, for me, watching all the episodes with the A word, seeing Jack Riley generalize pretty much everything he's learned quickly within even a session. It's ridiculous.
He's become a little sponge.
Definitely, and you can see how much more excited he is about learning now that he has the tools and he understands these things that are building upon. All he wants to do is, absorb more information, and so I see that it does make a difference. But I think every child is different. Some kids will learn a lot faster than others.
Absolutely, everybody's progress is going to be different. But let me ask you, you were mentioning that you were having a conversation with other people the other day about autism. Share what you can. Don't give away what you can't. I'm sorry, I got to get a tissue because I got so emotional there.
Don't worry.
But in any case, so you were at a dinner party and the subject of autism came up. What can you tell us, that not giving away too much because we're here live?
So I guess one of the things is that we were talking about autism and the diagnosis and how now it's 1 in 88. And we were at the table trying to figure out, or we're trying to discuss, our thoughts about that. Is that something that's just being overdiagnosed? Is it real? And the issue that we were having at the table, we were discussing, is that my friend Renee, who's a school teacher, there's definitely kids that she sees that have that. And then there's other kids that she sees, and she thinks that maybe it's something else, but they're trying to find something. And I don't know where I stand with that, but I think there is this over need to label things so people understand something. But there is a such thing as autism. It's not a figment of imagination, but I think it becomes hard when there's just one word to define something that has such extremes.
I agree.
There's very mild to super having difficulty communicating and doing
it's a
basic
huge spectrum.
Huge spectrum, and that's hard to grasp for a lot of people.
It is.
It's like, how can this be one thing? And then I have a lot of friends that are creative and quirky and super smart, and we tease that we think maybe that they're on it, and they get very offended because how can be super focused, super smart mean that I have this thing? And I think it's because of the huge gap between having very mild to very severe forms of autism.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a huge spectrum. Years ago, when my son was diagnosed, somebody said, don't think of it as autism, think of it as autisms, and that we have so much more to learn about what all these places on the spectrum are. We have a question, but I need to bring it up. But again...
So that's the issue that you have. It's just, we were debating the word and what that means to have a word be so vague.
Okay, the question is, hi Shannon, I just logged into the segment. Nice to see Miss Suzanne in front of the camera. I would like to know if it's she who narrates the episode or is it the mom? By the way, I follow the episodes in the YouTube and I was just wondering why A Word is not updated in more than a month now. We'll talk a little bit about that. And how is Jack Riley now? And thanks. So let's start with, is it you that's narrating or is it the mom?
Sometimes it's the mom, sometimes it's me. When I'm kind of breaking down what's going on in therapy, that's typically me, but anything that deals with, what's going on with inner thoughts, that's typically the mom. I try to make it pretty known who's speaking, but Mine is usually just the clinical stuff.
Okay, and we are going to be updating soon some stuff on.
Yes, we are updating. We've just been having a little technical difficulties with things going on here in the office, but we are planning to, hopefully there'll be a new one today. I have a backlog of videos, so don't worry, it's not going anywhere.
Yep.
And it'll be up this Thursday.
There you go. There you go. You've heard it directly from the filmmaker herself. There's a lot happening and changing here, and as you know, we changed from Skills Live to Autism Live and different websites and different things, so things are in flux, but stick with us. You've got your followers, and we don't want them to think that you've gone away.
I haven't gone away, so please stay tuned, and Jack Riley is doing really well, and you'll be seeing that in the next episode.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much for coming and being with us.
Thank you.
It's always a pleasure to talk to you. And again, thank you so much, because this is so important to me personally, what you're doing. And I got all the clump to talking about it, but it's really, and I don't want to get all messy, but it's so important to me what you're doing, the story that you're telling, because you're not just telling it for Jack Riley, you're telling it for all of our kids. So thank you.
No worries.
All right, we're going to take a break because I'm all messy now, and we'll be back in just a couple of minutes. Stick with us.
When Maddie was diagnosed, I'll be honest, I was very ignorant on what autism was. I knew that autism was basically something that hit boys at the age of 2 to 3, and shut down, and sometimes you think of the typical Rain Man movie. And with Maddie, she was doing all the same signs and symptoms of a typical child with autism spectrum disorder.
Stand up.
She didn't even acknowledge us coming into the room. She had barely any eye contact. She didn't interact with her sisters. She didn't really do anything. She just basically lined up her toys, and that was about it. We have a team of 7 volunteers, or 8 now. We have 8 volunteers, including my husband and I. And I'm the team leader, and so I do all the curriculum and get everything ready each week.
Jana was downstairs until 11 o'clock at night working on curriculum, going through 2 different textbooks. And then we, as a group, meet on Monday nights, and we would go through what the curriculum was from Jana. And a lot of times we would go, well, how exactly do you do that? How do you sit her at the table and do this trial base? What Skills has done for us, it's taken that away from Jana trying to figure out the curriculum for one. She can go down, or even our laptop, and she can sit down, and through all these questions, it comes up with the different programs.
At least for me, it was a relief off my shoulders. I was worried that I might be missing something, missing a curriculum that maybe she needs to know, where Skills, they have every possible thing your child needs to know from 0 to 7. They have a program for that.
What noise is this?
Good job! Every program that we did with her, I knew it was specific for what she needed to learn. Because before Skills, it was a lot of, okay, well, is that really age appropriate for a 2-year-old? You know, because it's not generalized. It's anywhere from 0 to 7. This is what your child needs to know, and in most manuals you'll find. But for this, okay, yep, she should be learning this. And no, she's not 4 yet. She doesn't need to know that yet.
We are so fortunate that Jana was able to attend a conference put on by CARD that opened the door for Skills, and that there's no looking back for us.
We started using the program in November. It seemed like by January something just clicked, and she has completely kind of came out of her fog that she was in for quite a while.
I have never read a documented case on any child that has not benefited anything from applied behavior analysis, and now with this new Skills and being, you know, like the E version of ABA, I can't imagine it doing anything harmful to their child. It's nothing but exponential growth for us.
To see her now, it just blows us away. I mean, we call her our little miracle child because in 7 months' time, she's just blossomed into this normal, functioning child, and suddenly, we joke about it all the time, like suddenly we have twins.
If you're even thinking about doing it, do it. Because the absolute worst thing you can do is do nothing at all. And even if you use this program and it's just a single mom or a single dad working in the evenings with their child, this program is going to benefit them. It's going to show you where they are, it's going to show you where they need to go, and it's going to show you what skills and how to get there. It is an online book on how to help recover your child.
Welcome back, and thank you for writing in. We love it when viewers write in and ask questions. I can't even tell you how reinforcing that is for us, so thank you so much for doing that. It's that time of day when we take on a myth, and I said to you that, and I brought up the wrong one, silly moi. Hang on a second, and I'm going to bring up the one, I brought up the wrong slide. There we go. I promised you that I was going to take on one of the ones that really gets me a little on the heated side. And we've been talking about this a little bit this week. And so myth number 4, which is that ABA and DTT are the same thing. Okay, this makes me furious because as we move forward and as people start to understand that A, autism is treatable, and B, that ABA therapy is effective in treating autism, and we want to spread that message, right? Because there are parents out there who do not know that their child could be making progress. If you're one of those parents, I'm so glad that you're here and that you're with us, because all of our children on the spectrum, that big, long spectrum that we've been talking about all day long, that could be anything from somebody who is so high functioning that their life is working and there's just one or two little things that they would like to strengthen, can be helped with ABA. Because honestly, you and I can be helped by ABA. ABA is used for people of all walks of life, all ages of life, right? So everybody that's on that end, they just want to make something a little bit better in their life, can be helped by ABA. And then all the way to our kids who are very profoundly affected, who have no means of communication. Those children, those young adults, those adults on the spectrum can be helped through ABA. So we want to get the word out to people that there is help, there is hope, there is effective treatment for autism, and that we should all be participating in it as much as we possibly can. And it does not help when people then start talking about DTT as being the same as ABA. So it is one of those things that I get really, people go, why do you get that upset about it? Because it persists, this myth. If anybody was to do just DTT, what they would end up are those robotic children that Suzanne was just talking about. That was her understanding before she began to learn more about ABA. There is this idea that people have put forward that, oh, if you do that, you're going to get a robotic child. Well, that's only if you only ever did DTT. So, you know, I really take offense when people talk about ABA and DTT as being synonymous. They are not. They are not synonymous. And how I like to explain it to people is, and the truth is that it's one element of ABA. DTT is one element of ABA. And you see I've got this picture of the car there. You take your car and you use your car to go far, right? That's what we do with ABA. We take the car that is ABA and we use it to take our children far. Okay, in your car, you have a steering wheel. Steering wheel is really important. I don't know about you, I wouldn't want to drive my car without a steering wheel, right? But I'm not going to just take my steering wheel out and try to get someplace, because I'm not going to get, I might get around the corner, but if I'm driving from New York to California and that's where I have to go, I want to take the car, and the steering wheel is going to be a part of the car, but I cannot take the steering wheel and get from New York to California anytime this life. I could probably start out walking and, you know, be dead before I could get to California. ABA is the car, DTT is the steering wheel. We want to use DTT. I'm not saying that DTT is a bad thing at all. DTT is wonderful. It's a fabulous tool that we can use to introduce a new skill to a child and give them the opportunity to get it right and make it motivating enough for them to get it right. But if we stopped there, we're not going to get that far. We're going to get a robotic child, a child who can do a skill like a trained parrot, but they can't apply it to their life and their world in a way that's natural and beneficial to them, right? So DTT is the steering wheel. It's going to help us to get where we want to go. But if we don't have all the other elements of the car, we're not going to have the success that we want. So the other elements of the car for ABA are things like natural environment training and precision training. We want for our children to be able to have a skill and to be able to apply it in a wide variety of circumstances, which means they need to generalize it. They need to not just do it in that DTT setting. When you see people sitting at a table working with a child and they're putting down stimuli and asking the child to do something and they're reinforcing them for it, and it has that very foreign look to it, right? It's like what, the first time I saw it, I was like, oh, it's like lab rats, they push the button and the pellet of food comes down. Oh, I don't want that for my child, right? But it's one little element of it. And if you are watching the A word, you see that they do the DTT, but then they take it into the natural environment and apply it in that way. That's ABA. And taking all of these different things, applying some DTT to get the skill started. I don't know about you, but when we started out on this journey, there were so many things that my child wanted to learn, and I was having such difficulty teaching him, to the point where I've shared that there was a moment when I thought, oh my gosh, is he unteachable? It was that horrible, horrible voice inside me asking that question, is he unteachable? Could that be? And how devastating that could have been. Well, I'm so happy to report that that was not the case. But the truth is that I had to introduce new subjects to him in a way that was completely foreign to me. And DTT, very, very efficient at introducing those new things. It opened his mind up to, it gave him the opportunity to be reinforced so that he learned, when I do this, I have good things happen. Therefore, I want more of this to happen. And what Suzanne Oshinsky was just talking about with Jack Riley and the A word, that all of us, that he gets it now. Oh, you're going to teach me something. I'm going to learn it, and my life is going to be better for it. Bring it on. Bring it on. Well, DTT really helps us to get to that. If you've been frustrated and you've been at home and you've been trying to teach your child a skill, and you go, whether it's counting to 5 or tying their shoes or kicking a ball or asking another person how they're feeling and considering their feelings, whatever it is, and you say, I just can't do it, DTT can be really effective at introducing that skill. At introducing that skill and making it something really positive in the child's life. But in order for it to be a skill that they own and possess and that they use, they've got to be able to apply it in a natural environment, and we're not going to get that with DTT. So DTT and ABA are not synonymous. DTT is one element of ABA, an important one that we're going to talk about here, and how to do it and how to use it, because it's going to help your child to grow skills. But then you've got to take it out into the community. You've got to fit it into the natural environment, and you can. And when you do, it's a happy, happy day. Stick with us. We're going to take a break and come back to close out the show. Back in a moment. Welcome. We're here with Cecilia Knight. She is the Director of Training for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, so it's a rare treat to have her here. And right now I want to talk about self-stimulatory behavior.
Well, I guess textbook, we're looking at any ritualistic or stereotypical behavior that a child engages in repetitively. The thought is the more appropriate replacement behaviors that we teach, the more those items become more reinforcing and give the child access to whether it's visual stimulation or auditory stimulation or tactile stimulation. So those now more appropriate activities would be more reinforcing. So it's important to teach something that competes and that is more fun than engaging in the self-stimulatory behavior. All self-stimulatory behavior is automatically reinforced, meaning the behavior itself feels good for whatever reason. I have no visual stimulation, so I flap my hand in front of my eye and now I have visual stimulation. So you're looking for a replacement that matches. I had a little girl one time who was not talking but was singing, and it was very repetitive and the same song over and over. Music became a big interest. So when we gave her a voice to have a conversation, the vocal stereotypy decreased dramatically.
You have to tell me. Oh, you want lip gloss too?
Do you find that sometimes parents are hesitant or resistant to replacing a self-stimulatory behavior?
Yes. It's very difficult to always be looking out for that self-stimulatory behavior. I do think you have to help a parent understand that those things like riding the scooter will eventually replace the self-stimulatory behavior.
A lot of us have been there. That's not where we want to be. It just felt like, wow, I'm going to take away the thing that makes him feel okay, and he's working so hard and doing this.
But also know that that's the point of intervention, is not to take away all the things that are reinforcing to the child, but to give them other options that are more appropriate. It's difficult to engage with your child many times in a self-stimulatory behavior because there's a pattern or routine, and it's hard to engage with them. So trying to bring them into activities that are reinforcing with others.
Where did they go? Oh, nice job. He needs a nose too. Where does his nose go? What else? What else does he need? This is my potato.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. And our question of the day to you, I just wanted to visit because there are more of them and wanted to talk about it a little bit. Our question of the day to you was, what is the biggest breakthrough your child has had since being diagnosed? And some of you guys wrote in overwhelmingly on Facebook about social skills and about language skills and about toileting. I just love it because so often when people talk about progress that our kids make, they'll say, well, these kids, and they don't make substantive progress. And, not all of them anyway. We'll talk about how 47% will achieve a status where they're virtually indistinguishable from their peers, and that's amazing, right? That's great. And then there's another group that makes tremendous progress, but they're not virtually indistinguishable from their peers, but tremendous progress. And then in the third group, they'll say, and they didn't make the substantive progress. And yet it's in that group that they do things like get functional communication skills and toileting. And it always tears my ticket when they talk about that as if it's nothing. For those of us who have kids, that's everything, right? For a child to be able to get toileting and to be able to say, whether it's pointing at a picture or signing it or on a device, say, I want a baked potato, is life-changing for them and for us. And it really upsets me when anybody tries to minimize that. Toileting is huge. It's huge. And one of you wrote it and said how amazing it is to be independent. Absolutely love that. So a couple of more that somebody said acquiring language at 3 and now normal language for 7 years. How wonderful is that? Self-help skills at the age of 6, that he gained these self-help skills and now is 12. Another person who wrote in and says that all breakthroughs began when we changed to CARD a year ago. And you guys know I'm a huge fan of CARD, Center for Autism and Related Disorders. It was my autism miracle in my living room from them. And that I do love them. I always like to tell you they are not the only ABA provider out there, and they're not the only quality ABA provider out there. But there are some ABA providers out there who you guys tell me are not getting the job done. And this is not acceptable. I would tell you a couple of different things. If you are having an ABA provider, and when we talk about generalization here, if you are not seeing generalization happen and you're not seeing that it's planned for from the very first time that a therapist is working with your child, that is not just a bad sign, that's a stop sign. And I know that for some of you, you're saying, yes, but this is who I have my funding through, and I've talked to my funding source, and if I'm going to change providers, I'm going to be on a waiting list for 6 months, and I don't know what to do, and I can't know for you, but I can tell you what I've heard from so many different parents, that if you are not getting the right treatment, you're not going to get the right response. You're not going to get the desired reaction that you want. And I can't know for you because I don't know what's happening with your ABA provider, but if you're not seeing results, I can encourage you to look in other places because you should. You should. And if the desired response isn't happening, then your ABA provider should be looking at it and saying, we got to change something. This isn't a one-size-fits-all, and they need to be creative. They need to be looking at your individual child, and you need to be seeing substantive results on a regular basis, or have them explain why not. It's how it should be. And I've seen so many families who suffered through a year of less than quality ABA therapy, only to finally at the end of the year go, we just can't do this anymore. We're losing time. And we've spent all this energy and sometimes money, and it feels terrible to switch, but then when they do switch, they see that the child blossoms. And I would rather see you do that earlier as opposed to later. But again, you got to know that for yourself. And I encourage you to talk to your local community. I'm very fond of telling you guys, get a local community and then get a global community. And if it has to be you starting the local community, well, congratulations. I know you're up to it. There's an organization called TACA, T-A-C-A, and you can find their website, tacanow.org, and they will show you where their organizations already are. They have wonderful resources, and you can join. If there's one local to you, you can join that one. I belong to one for my community, and you get to hear about providers and you can ask questions. And so if you're having difficulty with a provider and you write in there and you say, hey, I don't think my provider's getting it done. What's everybody else's experience? First of all, you're doing a service to the entire community, letting other people know not to go with that provider. And secondly, you're going to hear back, here's who you should go with, whoever it is in your individual community. Of course, I always recommend start at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders and see if one is available close by you, because it's the one thing that I can tell you for sure. I know that everybody who is trained to work as a therapist at CARD gets the same training, they get the same supervision, and they have a work ethic that's unbelievable. So, and they care about your kids. And again, they aren't the only ones, but I say start with CARD, see if you can get CARD services where you are, talk to your local support group, see who they recommend where you are locally. By the way, the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, they have over 20 offices around the world, and the way all those offices started, it started out as a little itty-bitty one office more than 20 years ago, and the way that it has sprung up in different locations were that there were families who said, we want you to come here. So if you're already a part of a local group and you don't have an ABA provider, or you don't have an ABA provider that you think is getting it done, get together with your group. If you've got a group of 10 or more families, you can talk to CARD about coming and starting an office. They're opening new offices around the world. And then you can have access to the kinds of things that my child had access to, which is what I want for all of you. And if that is not a possibility right now because you're going it alone, and you don't have the group yet that started, and you know that the clock is ticking and you want to be able to help your child today, Let's just talk about today. What can you do today? There's Card eLearning. You can go on Card eLearning and you can begin to learn these techniques so that you can be a quality ABA provider, right? You can go on there and start today. There are videos that you can start and stop and pause and take notes on. And I guarantee you, if you even spent an hour today, even less than that, I think in the first 15 minutes, you get really valuable information about how you can begin to work with your individual child. So Card eLearning, a wonderful thing, great thing to give to your babysitters, your in-laws, your teachers, your child's aide, a fabulous training. But then there's also the companion piece to it, which is skills. That's what I use at home. It's all the lessons that my son went through when he was getting therapy from Card, but now I have the ability to do this at home in my own time, look at the teaching points, come up with IEP goals for my son. It's a fabulous thing. And you can be using it until you get an ABA provider to be where you are. Let's not kid around here that in the best of all possible worlds is that you have an ABA provider who's going to help you to design your program, and then you've got therapists who are coming to your house to help you to do this intervention with your child. That's the best possible format, and I want that for all of you. But we know that for some of you, wherever you are in the world, that's going to take a little bit more time. We need to get, more awareness in our medical community and get more funding for these kinds of things. And your child shouldn't be penalized in the meantime. Your child should not be it should not be a situation where your child does not get access to that while the infrastructure is built to be able to deliver that. So that's what I love about Card eLearning and Skills, is that nobody needs to be left out of this equation anymore. And if you're sitting there and saying it's a very low cost thing, a subscription to Skills, but if you can't afford it, don't be ashamed of that. I can assure you that I probably couldn't have, when we were going through this, my ABA was paid for by the state of California. There's no way that I could have afforded. Don't be ashamed of the fact that you don't have the funds to do it, but don't sit there and do nothing about it. ACT Today is giving grants right now. You can apply for a grant for Skills, and they grant that on a regular basis. That's a wonderful thing to ask for. In fact, you can ask for whatever it is you need help with, whether it's offense, assessments, ABA therapy, intervention because your child is doing self-injurious behavior. Please ask ACT Today for a grant for your family for whatever it is that you feel that you need. That's what they're there for. We're getting to the end of the show. Can you hear it? Because I got all these things to talk about. Tomorrow is Wednesday. On Wednesday, we have Evelyn Gould in the studio with us at 10 a.m. talking about topics that help parents. And I think in particular tomorrow we're going to talk about what to do when it's not working, how we can tweak things to be able to see the kind of progress that we want to see, that our kids deserve. Then at 11 o'clock, we have Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson here with us in the studio. We'll go over recent news. We're also going to have somebody in here talking to us about apps for autism tomorrow. That's going to be on the show. And so that will be a wonderful thing, talking about some events that are happening in our community here locally, but are helping for young adults to get housing for autism. So I know you're going to want to tune in for that. And of course, Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson, she is one awesome autism mom. She inspires me on a weekly basis. So always thrilled to be able to share the studio with her at 11 o'clock on Wednesdays. I will also want to tell you that on Thursday at 11 o'clock, we're talking about awesome autism moms. We're going to have Polly Tomey with us from the Autism File. She is a British autism mommy. She's, boy, can she shake up a place, right? So we'll have Polly with us on Thursday at 11 o'clock. And then on Friday at 11 o'clock, we have Dr. Jonathan Tarbox coming in talking with us about research. It's mind-boggling how much stuff we have going on here, but always we want to hear from you about what you want to know. So even as this show closes, the conversation continues. You can email us. You can phone us. You can Facebook us. You can tweet us. You can Skype us. You can watch us on Blip until we're back again tomorrow. All these different, tweet to us, put us, like us on Facebook, all of these different things that you can do. Download us on iTunes. It's a free download on Blip and on iTunes. All those different ways and more coming to you. I appreciate this time to be with you because it's a privilege for me to be able to be here with you. And I want you to know that we're in this together. I'm here for you. Tell me what you need. Tell me what's holding you back. I want to hear from you about the kinds of topics that you want to hear more about. It's a wonderful day to begin to work with our children. So until tomorrow, please give your kiddos a hug from me. Bye-bye.